So, if I may speak, good evening, everyone. Yes, that would be great if because we have the report that's coming to council on the 22nd, it would be great for us to touch on those items to get your feedback. So we can put all your concerns or, as I said before, feedback into the report.
Okay. So the 4.1, though, I believe that's just committee business that Development Services doesn't need. Is that correct? Administration, anybody?
Yeah, so for 4.1, that's just items that we need to kind of just chat about for future planning. So that can definitely get moved to either the bottom of this agenda or punted completely to the next meeting.
Okay. Yep. So for the time being, then I'd like to switch 4.0 and 5.0. And then that way, if we start getting short on time, we just need a direction to postpone the 4.1 item to the March meeting, so we don't wind up going over our meeting time. If there's no objection to that? No. Okay, seeing none, then we'll make that change to the agenda. And are there any other changes from committee or administration?
This might be already covered in here, but I just wanted an update on the boardwalk maintenance activities for plan for this winter. What's happening with that?
That is good.
Okay. Okay. Is there any objection to adding that to today's agenda? Okay, seeing none, we'll add that. We'll make that. We'll put that in between 5.0 and 4.0. So hopefully we can get to it. It should be pretty quick anyways. So. Okay. Any other changes? Okay, seeing nothing else, I need a motion to adopt the agenda as amended. Jan?
Yeah.
Okay, Jan moves. All those in favor? Heather, is it possible to not share the screen
Sure
unless
can.
we need it up?
Yes, I prefer
I can't
that.
see everybody actually. So. Yeah, that's better. Then if we need to put it up.
There's two participants with raised hands, I see.
See that now too. Doug?
Oh, no, sorry. I was just raising my hand with that first motion there, and then I can't figure out how to turn it off.
That's a good question. Anybody know how to turn it
You
on?
click the same button that you click to raise it. It should say lower hand now.
Yeah,
It's a reaction button.
I've done it before. I'm trying to find it. There we go.
Here we go. Perfect. Okay. All right. Okay, so adoption of meeting minutes. Are there any changes to the meeting minutes? The one thing I did note is I thought we did set a standing meeting date. On the minutes, it says regular schedule to be determined. And I'm pretty sure with the committee agreed that it would be the second Wednesday of each month. Is that kind of the recollection everybody else has? Jan?
It does say next meeting date, BBC agrees monthly meetings occurring second Wednesday each month from 4 p.m. to 6 p.m.
Oh, okay, yep, sorry, right below that, it says regular schedule to be determined.
Oh, yeah.
Yep, sorry, I missed that bullet point. Okay, no, that's all good then. Okay. Okay, anything else? Anybody, any changes or corrections to the minutes before the adoption? Okay. Seeing none, somebody wants to move to adopt the minutes?
Oh.
Beth? All those in favor? Okay, and that was unanimous as well. Okay, brings us, sorry. First action item, so review of administrative inquiry regarding Maxwell Lake Bridge project and tender package. I will turn that over to administration to get that conversation started, and then we can take it from there. I think what we probably want to do, committee, is if there's suggestions for things that we want to make sure get captured, and passed on to council when this gets presented to council. It should likely be done by motion and vote, so we can make sure that that things are being accurately captured and that we're capturing things that are of broad importance to the entire committee. I want to make sure we're not just capturing a recommendation if it's only the opinion of one or two people. So if no one has any objection to that, that's probably how we'll move ahead with that. Okay, so I'll throw it over to administration to get that started, and then we can pick it up.
Okay, I'll start. So my strategy to not to go into each one of the questions and go back and forth. I want to just take you guys a little bit back from the approved motion from council. So I'm bringing up this drawing here because this was a document that was part of the direction from council to actually build boardwalk approaches north, south, and west to the Maxwell Lake bridge. So I want to share my screen here. It's kind of funny in Zoom. Sorry. Share screen. There we go. Sure. Are you guys seeing my screen? Okay.
Interrupt though for 1 second, is Beckford. There is something I neglected. Trevor is generally our minute taker, and I see Trevor's not on with us today, so.
Yeah, I'm here. My video is just not on.
Oh, if you guys, okay, if the attendance, yeah, sorry. If you guys could turn your videos on, that would be great. I can't tell how you're voting. I can't tell if you want to speak or anything like that if your video's off. So if your video could be on, that would be great. I'd appreciate that. Sorry about that, Trevor. I didn't realize you were with us. I had non-video participants turned off, so I didn't see you. So, okay, very good. Sorry then. Carry on, Ms. Daly-Beckford.
Okay, so back to what I was saying before, based on council motion to go ahead and build the north, south, and west ramp. So with that being said, this was part of the package that was submitted to council, and in council motion, they made it clear that we should have no plaza, no benches, none of the extension. In this drawing, you can see what we presented. It had the benches and in there. So at the meeting on January 14th, I presented this schematic design here to show that we removed the plazas and the bench. This is what was presented on June 14th. So after that meeting, we went to tender, and we tendered the project with a number of things in mind. So even though council had mentioned that they just want to just connect the boardwalk, north, south, and west, council option landed the boardwalk on the gravel path. So what we did is when we went to tender, we looked at the opportunity to extend the boardwalk to the trail head on the north side. And the reason why we did that is because we realized that we could do this amount of work within the approval that we have. So even though council's option said stop, well, not said, but council's option showed the boardwalk landing on the gravel on each side, we tendered extending the boardwalk to the trail. The reason why we didn't extend the boardwalk on the south side to the trailhead is because we knew the amount of funds we had, and based on the construction estimate, it didn't make sense. We added this section all the way to the trail. So if you look at your tender package, you will see all of this in there. And that's the reason why it shows like that. I know many persons have questions about misalignment and why was it tendered like that. So as mentioned before, we took the opportunity to extend it so that in the future, if we so choose to, we could, or if the bid came back and allowed for funds to do that, we wouldn't have to go back to AEP to get those approvals. Since we received the tender, the monies pretty much did not match up to what council was willing to spend. Council budget of $251,000. So in my report for February 22nd, I looked at a few considerations that will bring us in line with the monies we have available. So option one, sorry, not really option, consideration one would be building the boardwalk, thinking about council's option to the original option to get it to the gravel side on the north side and to do the boardwalk and ramp on the south side. That being said, with the funds, after doing the calculation, we won't be able to get the west side completed. And that is because of the amount of money that came in on the bid that we received. The second consideration we looked at was, okay, do just one side, because it would be three. We're looking at it and saying, okay, we have 3 sections of boardwalk. We know if we just do the ramp and landing on the gravel, we're still kind of in the water. So what if we just do one project at a time and complete one section and then do the south and the west as 2 separate projects. We would just have this side complete and we won't have to go back and do work again in the future with the fact that it would have landed in the gravel. The final option that we looked at was, okay, this if we just not do the south side, what we tendered was to do the entire section from the north side bridge to the trail, and the south side from the bridge to I think the ramp is about 10 meters and then another 10 meters of boardwalk that land you on the gravel. This side will be completely finished, and then we will have to do future work for this part just to get it to the trail, with the understanding that the gravel part tends to be underwater. And that option came in at $326,347. I didn't mention the cost for option 2. It is actually $270. So option 1 and option 2 is coming in at the same cost. So that's where we are with the tender package right now. And I'm just opening it up for questions.
Okay, thank you. Okay, committee, are there any clarifying questions for administration before we start moving towards putting forward some proposed directions and recommendations? I'll go with Jan and then Beth. Anyone else? Okay, Jan, Beth, and then Doug.
Maybe, can you flip back to consideration 1 or option 1, please? Diana.
There we go.
The purple one that you showed at the very beginning?
Okay, that would have been what we tendered.
Oh.
Sorry.
I guess I'm a little bit confused on why it's such an issue for that west leg to come into what we're planning. I'm not sure why.
So
I'm not sure what the planning was with that brand new section on the west and why we couldn't just use the old way and come in just as it is right now, but just to join what you're planning to do.
The reason for that is the west section, when the bridge was being constructed, the west section now falls right under the bridge. We would have to realign that section in order to connect it back to the existing boardwalk. If you continue on that same path going this way, you're underneath the bridge.
So making a small deviation to bring it to match up properly, that's a lot of money. I'm guessing. I didn't think it would be, but what do I know?
So I can tell you the cost to just do the west connection only. It's $95,000, and that is the scope of work, including the environmentals.
Yeah, no, I'm hoping not to do that, but that's okay. Yeah.
Beth?
Could you just review the cost of your option 1 and option 2 again?
So option 1 is $270,000 based on the tender we received. We only, sorry, I should have said this earlier. We only received one tender, and by going through the numbers and picking off the quantities, option 1 came out at a cost of $270,000, and that is construction only.
And option 2, the ramp.
And
to the north?
Option 2 came in at the same cost.
Oh,
as
I see, 270, yeah, but you're extending the boardwalk, yeah, okay.
The only, I guess I was talking a little bit too fast. The only downside to option 2 is that you get to finish this side, but when you land on the bridge and you complete the bridge, the steps remain the steps will be there. You will have to use the steps temporarily until funds are available to make this side, to do that connection.
Okay, good, Beth?
Yeah, that's good.
Okay, I'm gonna go to Doug and then we'll go back to Jan.
So 2 questions. So first question, sorry, Danny, you said only one bid came in for this job?
Yes, we tendered on APC and the Town of Hinton website, and we only received one bid.
And what was I vaguely recall, the time permitted for this one was about 2 weeks, wasn't it? It was released back in January with a closing time. Okay.
That's
So
correct. Fairly
very
2 weeks it
accelerated.
was there for. Yes, that's correct.
Yeah, is that typical for Town of Hinton projects?
Yes, it
One
is.
bidder? Oh,
2
okay.
weeks.
No, I mean for the number of bidders. Is that typical?
To receive only one?
Yeah.
Is that a question? Sometimes that happens. It just depends on what's happening in the market.
Okay. Second question was, do we need the ramps? If the issue is cost, why not just a staircase?
So Doug, is that something that you would like for the committee to discuss and maybe make as a recommendation, or are you asking administration why they went with ramps rather than stairs?
Yeah, I mean, you mentioned, or Dan, I think it might have been you, Diana, you mentioned something around 200 something. I remember vaguely recalling as like an initial spitball number. And it appears we're now over that, which is why we're looking at other options. I'm just wondering why we went with ramps rather than, something a bit more bare bones as an idea.
We went with ramps because steps are in place, and that was council's direction in order to make the bridge accessible for wheelchair, and because the steps weren't working out for persons with disabilities.
Okay. Okay, thanks. Those are my questions.
Okay, thanks, Doug. Jan?
I just wanted to make sure, were we sent this stuff, these maps?
I don't believe we did get this set of maps, no.
Just
these-
asked Diana to send them to me and then I'll flip them all out to you guys so we don't have.
It's just hard to make a decision when we're kind of looking at the stuff. First time.
So, sorry, are you asking me to, okay, Heather, I will forward those to you and then you can distribute them to the team, definitely.
Thanks.
I guess this might be discussion or just a point of, this might be a discussion, but I noticed that the bidder for this that submitted a tender was this Sure Seal Contracting Limited that actually put the bridge in, and they didn't do a very good job. So how confident is the town that these people would do a good job?
So before we
I
go
will-
to administration, sorry, just 1 second. Can you clarify what you mean by the not a very good job?
Well, the whole gravel ramps thing. You know, I mean, they put the bridge in and then they put the gravel, but there was no sediment curtains, there was no containment, there was no awareness that they were, you know, putting all this stuff all over the environment.
Okay, administration?
I will, so a contractor is given a design and the contractor did not came up with the design of using the gravel. He was just following the engineering design, which was created by ISL.
Oh.
So when you say he didn't do a very good job, it's the one, I don't know if I will get in trouble to say that's an unfair statement because he wasn't the one who designed for gravel to be in there. He was just doing the scope of work provided by the engineer.
So if I may, Ms. Daly Beckford, though, one of the concerns though is that maybe in terms of project oversight, it wasn't quite as robust as it could have been. In that when the gravel was being laid in, there was spillage and they were, you know, it wasn't staying all on the intended path. So there was some spillage that was outside the area of work and there wasn't any erosion or any sediment controls in place at that time. And I believe those are all requirements that when you're working in the wetlands. So is there anything that's part of this tender that's going to address project supervision so that the contractor is, so the town's able to hold the contractor responsible and make sure that they are adhering to the requirements of the Wetland Act and the tender itself?
Thank you, Councilor Stashik. To answer your question, yes, we have things in place for monitoring the contractor's scope of work for environmental concerns in terms of one, the creosote tiles removal, and two, for oil and spill hazardous containment. So yes, we have something in the budget for on the engineering side of things to take care of that.
I can clarify then, so there will be on-site supervision during the time that the work's being conducted?
That is correct, and that will be done by Associated Environmental.
Okay. That good, Beth?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, I don't believe I had anybody else. Did I thought I saw a hand though. Tom, did I see your hand up?
Yeah, it was. Some of the stuff with the bridge, after reading the code of practice applications and looking at the information, I think there's a whole lot of things that were left to the imagination on everybody's side. And I think that's some of the reason we're at where we're at. As far as this project, I kind of got the impression that accessibility was a concern. It's something that we wanted to deal with. But the reality is that it's going to be phase construction, just from the costing and what I'm seeing. I'm leaning toward option A, but it's very early days to make that kind of decision. It just means more time to discuss. It kind of puts us on our back foot. We saw this going a certain way, and now it's like, oh wait, the tenders have come in, and it's not quite what we expected. So now we're sort of left to look at it all and try to reevaluate where that priority is for the project, for the bridge, et cetera. I know there's a real want to get the bridge in use. So but yeah, it's a bit of I find myself a little surprised, but maybe with the history of it, I shouldn't be. But yeah, it's a bit to digest right now. But I think if we're talking accessibility, the priorities would be the north and south for now. We understand the west. It's still an open topic for the committee as well. What to do with the west? If it's rehabbed, how do we tie it in? I mean, those all are considerations to come, but it's periodicity. We have to start somewhere. So you start with the north and south access and how we do that and the time frame it takes. What can be funded? I mean, we're talking about a grant covering it. Now we're talking about probably having to come up with, at the minimum $20,000 to complete the project just to make it accessible. So it's kind of put me on my back foot as to where we should go with this. So I'm a little, like I said, I'm a little surprised, but good information. Thank you.
Thanks, Tom. Beth?
Yeah, just, I thought the grant itself was for connectivity. Like that was what the grant stressed, was that this was, I'm not sure that's the right language, but that was part of what the grant was trying to do.
I didn't hear what Beth just said. Could you just repeat that, please?
I think the instruction for the grant was something to do with connectivity. Like I'm pretty sure that was the underlying reason for the grant. And that might not be the right language, but I think that was why the grant was being given out.
And I will speak to that. Like half an hour before this meeting, I got an email because at one point in time, we were questioning the whole removal of the bridge, and we had sending to the grant authority, asking a couple of questions. And they pretty much wanted me to clarify that we are sticking to the original scope of work, which is the connectivity to, of the ramps to the bridge. So yes.
Yeah.
Can I just sum up what I'm hearing here? I think what I'm hearing here is that we have $250,000 to spend and using ramps is pretty much a must. And our job is to try to use it to connect. So the way I see it, our only option right now is to focus on north and south and getting those ramps connected under 250. And I thought I saw one of those options or considerations did that. And it would mean, unfortunately, we can't work on the west right now, which is to me really unfortunate because I really like that west section, but
yeah,
that's what I hear.
Yeah.
So if I may, was there one option consideration that connected ramps north and south under 250 grand and obviously left the west alone?
So before I go back to administration, there was an email this afternoon that went out to the committee. I'm not sure everybody had a chance to see it, and it was the tender document that came with the bid pricing. So I don't know if everybody had a chance to look at that or not.
yeah.
Yeah, okay. So that kind of clarifies, it's broken up into the deletable items and the base item cost. Additionally, I want to clarify too that council had originally earmarked 250-ish thousand. I forget what the exact number is. And I believe that's what was budgeted. But I think actually that may have been a little bit misinformed when that number was thrown out. I think it's pretty indicative that the engineering estimated number is actually not far off from what wound up being tendered. In fact, the estimated number, I believe, was about 90,000 higher than what was bid to do the work. So I think at the time that council came up with it, or not came up, but quoted the 250,000, there wasn't really any numbers available to work with, so that it was just thrown out there. But I also want to make it clear to the committee too, though, the recommendation doesn't necessarily have to stick to $250,000. It could be that the recommendation from the committee to council is to go with full funding for the whole thing. Maybe I don't know what the reasoning of the committee might be for that, but that might be the recommendation. And then it's up to council to decide if that's what they want to accept. And if it is, that they go to administration and say, hey, where are we going to find this extra money? We need to take out a debenture. What are we going to do to fund the rest of the construction, because it's more than we have available. So. Yep.
I'm struggling here because I got nothing to look at in front of me. And we're supposed to make some decisions today, I think. So it's difficult for me to wrap my head around.
So if I may, ultimately the decision's up to council.
Oh, I know,
So
but we're supposed to
guys,
be.
yeah, but all you guys really need to know and to be able to make a recommendation is, do we want the whole thing? Do we just want the ramps on the two ends? Is it okay to get rid of this part? Is it okay to get rid of that part? That's all part of the recommendation. And then also to the other stuff that we had come back with the questions earlier. Is that something that wants to be included, like the removing the gravel, for example? Is that something that would form a recommendation to go back as part of this work? Yeah, sorry. Go ahead.
Can you do it? Can we do it as a recommended priority list? Like first, we would really love to do it all. If that's not possible, then two.
Sure.
Yep.
Yeah.
I like that. I like the gold standard and then just kind of waterfall down to what we can afford. Hopefully it's the gold standard, but realistically it probably isn't going to be.
So I did have a couple people I had, Hans and Heather, and I see Doug has his hand up too, so I'll go to Mr. Van Baalen.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. I think you said it already a little bit, but the really differences between what can be done is you're building ramps to the gravel, yay or nay. And everybody knows, hey, it's now dry on the gravel, might be not in the summertime, might be in the long time, but just building two ramps, that's the one in red that's showed. If you want to make sure that what is a big difference would be from the ramp to the dry shore to the north is an extra section. That's extra dollars. And to the shore to the south side, from the ramp all the way to the forest, basically, that's not even part of this tender. You haven't even seen what that cost. But is that something you want or not? And the west connection, it gets at least a platform coming down from the bridge halfway, half-ish over there so that it can be connected. But does it get yes or no already that little, let's say, corner in towards where the boardwalk now is underwater, where that interpretive sign hangs in the water? Those are the differences. So the group can say, you know what, don't do anything. Just leave the stairs up there. That's our first or second choice. Then, yeah, build a ramp on both sides to the gravel. At least you can get bikes up, driving over there. And if it's dry, it's nice. And if it's wet in the gravel, people will have to wear boots. Or no, the other option is build it all the way to the shore. Now you know it's all on piles, it's all timbered out, and that's how it looks. And then another option is that the gravel, you want to take the gravel out, and that's not even tendered out, but they have to dig into and move the gravel first before they put a boardwalk on top of it. Those are the blended bigger questions here. And yeah, you can rank them and saying, well, maybe that's our top as a group. And That's basically the questions that are here, because council will have exactly the same discussions that we have down here to wrap their head around it in the same manner. And they can say, hey, by the way, what did this group say? Then we can present it coming out of this meeting. Thank you.
Thank you, Hans. I'm gonna go Heather, Doug, Beth.
Sure, now that Diana has sent over those documents, if it is easier for everybody in the room and we wanted to talk about each one and kind of how we wanted to rank those, I can share them here in Zoom so that we can all see, because I know it was a little bit tricky when Diana had it on the screen. So just for yourself, Chair, when we get through all of the questions, if that's the process we want to go through, I can pull it up and we can say, yes, we like this one, no, we don't, what we do and don't like about it, and then hopefully that'll help you guys craft some motions.
Okay.
Just a question about this grant that was mentioned. How much of the cost does it cover and does it expire?
So, sorry. Yes, the grant has an expiry date. We will have to use the grant by 2023, December 2023.
Okay.
And the grant covers, when we applied for the grant covers 70, I think it's 80% of the capital project cost. Because when we applied for the grant, we applied with the notion of council capital budget of 320. So the grant covered 80% of that, which works out to the 251. And then the town's share was 68,000. Just bring it up here. One second. So the town's portion was $68,856.22. And then the grant portion, as you know, is $251,143.76.
And how much is, oh, sorry, go ahead.
So just to tell you exactly what the capital project cost we have available, well, not available at the time when we started this project. We had a budget of $359,370. And let me break that down for you. So when we have council approved 320, out of that 320, 251,143 was the grant. The town's portion of the grant was 68,856.25. We had a carry forward amount of $39,376. And that carry forward amount was from the bridge project. So when you add all of them, all the numbers together, we are at 359,376. So yes, we have more funds than what council wants to spend, just to answer your question. So to date, what we've spent is 59,506. Remaining budget that is available is $299,869.64. The money we spent to date covered engineering and all the approvals. We've received all the approvals already and I've paid for them. We have just a small amount of engineering fees to pay for, as well as the environmental control on site.
Okay. And okay, so it's 60 grand to get to this stage with engineering and your environmental approvals. My input is to, I mean, if you have a certain amount that's budgeted, I certainly don't want the looming specter of more property taxes to cover any increase. So my input would always be to pare down the scope to match what is available to spend. And I'm a little bit skeptical when I hear you only have one bidder. If you have your grant that is available until 2023, I would probably think it might be advantageous to wait and try again and get more than one bidder.
So the trick to that is based on what's happening with the supply chain and the market right now. I don't think you'll receive a lower cost. And just to let you know, the bidder came in lower than the expected price that the engineering thought that this project will come out at, as Councilor Stashik mentioned before. So you're running a risk that if you retender, it could come back higher than what we receive right now.
It could. The supply chain is pretty messy right now. We run into issues all the time, and it could get better. And no one really has any way to predict that.
How much of a tilt?
Okay. One sec, sorry. Making notes and I'm looking for something and I lost my list.
I see.
Okay, so I had Beth and then Jan and then, sorry, Ms. Weber, did you have something to add? Okay, you can go ahead if that's to add to the previous question.
Thank you, Councillor Stashik, and everyone that's here in the meeting today. It's my first time at this meeting, so it's nice to see all the faces. I just wanted to expand a little bit on what Diana was saying. So in regards to your question, Doug, it was a competitive marketplace bid process that we follow that is the same process as we have for all of our projects. It was posted on APC, which is our typical posting, and the 2-week time lag to wait for those tenders to come in or those bids to come in is standard process for seeking a marketplace pricing. The other thing I wanted to just kind of qualify is that exactly what Diana was saying about our timelines and possible increases in prices as those supply chains continue to be bottlenecked. We're seeing some of those prices going up. We're also working against a restriction with Alberta Environment to be working only in the winter period during frozen conditions. So there is a little bit of urgency behind our activities in regards to putting in piles or any of that kind of activity that has to be done under frozen conditions only with Alberta Environment. So if we do wait, then we will definitely put it into the winter season and possibly into the 2023 spring season. And I don't believe that we're going to get better pricing than we are today in another year from now. So I just wanted to qualify some of the other constraints that we're considering with this project. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Weber. I have Beth and then Jan and then Tom. I don't think I missed anybody.
Yeah, I'm just sort of like all the dollars, we're finally getting an idea of the total cost, which is kind of surprising to me. And if we're going to be talking all the options, which is a good thing, let's do all the options, including even unpopular ones. Like, for example, in the August 24 council meeting, there was a number thrown out of 52,000 for removing the bridge. I guess what are we trying to do here? We're trying to bridge a 9-meter channel of water is what we're trying to do. And these costs that are being thrown out and the ramps looks, you have this bridge, everybody says it's a mistake, we know that. They don't like it, we know that. But what's our solution here? Is double the visuals with the ramps and double the costs. Like, to me, that's not a solution for that bridge. So you could take the thing out and just put simple ramps right across for half the price and be well underneath. You probably even need hardly more than the grant to do that. So like, what are we doing here? Can we actually get Boardwalk north, south, and even right to the west to the outdoor classroom? If we got rid of that bridge and just had, direct connections, we didn't need ramps, we wouldn't need relocation like of the west connection, you wouldn't need all that. Because there's still questions in my mind if we, like for that little loop, the little dog leg that connects from the ramp on the north side to the west boardwalk. So say we do that, we get the money somehow, we do that. Then you've got that dead end piece of boardwalk going to the bridge with the scoop out punch through it. Well, that should be removed, but nobody's like, where's the money for that? Nobody's talked about that. That's just hanging out there, you know, so there's a lot of pieces here that really, it's costly, and there's lots of pieces still that we need to consider if we're looking at all of the options all the way through. So I guess the cost is just, we just keep building the costs is kind of alarming to me. So that's my comment.
Okay, beyond.
I guess I've suddenly got three things to say.
Yep.
To your point, I would need to see the town's financial estimate for removing the bridge and putting in a simple. And I say that because their prices, my experience is, and I don't want anyone from the town to take offense, but their prices are always a lot higher. And I think it's because of the legal engineering world that they live in, that it seems blown up to us. That's my experience with the parking lot at the disc golf. And I would need, because you say, have said that it's going to be, it's not that expensive to remove the bridge. I think that's going to be false. I think it's going to be a lot of money to remove that sucker.
That, I'm just using the dollar the town gave, so,
Well,
yeah.
that was
But,
that was then, this is now.
Yeah, I hear your point though.
I will also say, and you're not gonna like this,
That's
I'm
fine.
starting to love the bridge, because every time I go there, there's people on top of it taking selfies and photos, because it's a high point.
Yeah.
And they can see the whole area. So I would need to see that as a whole other priced out option to add to the other options that Diana is giving, to make it fair. To what we're talking about earlier on, Doug was talking about, it really brings forward the speed that we have to work here, because I understand what he's saying about getting more quotes, but if this grant is only good until Christmas 2023 or January, then there is no option. We have to get it done this winter. We can't wait till next winter. It's beyond the grant. So now I get to the real reason why I raised my hand, was to ask Hans, if you go with that option where you're just ramping to the gravel, and then later on wanted to ramp all the way to the shore, you would have to remove that first part that you did? Or is there a way of keeping that and just, I guess what I'm getting at, I would hate to do something and then have to pay to have it removed.
Yeah.
To me, that's a waste. And, you know, like one thing that our group said when we went to build the parking lot was go big and do it all at once and get it done as best possible on the first time, because there may not be another opportunity. So I would lean towards, right now, I would lean towards try to get it all the way. That's it.
So if I may, before I go to Mr. Von Favre, I do want to ask a clarifying question that's directly related to that. Writing numbers down and just crunching and doing math in my head, but I want to make sure I'm right. My understanding, Ms. Daly-Beckford, there is about $300,000 left between grant money and money that's already been approved via budget through council. Is that correct? Sorry, you're muted.
Roughly, the exact cost is, sorry, the exact amount that we have left over is $299,869.61.
Okay, thank you for that. So what I wanted to point out is in the tender that was sent out this afternoon, the bid from Sure Seal for all the work except for the deletables. So it's the platform landings, ramps, north connection, including all the handrails, screw piles, everything. But taking out the west connection and the other deletables, the total for that's $303,347. So that's really close to the amount of money that's currently available. there's 299, 869, and their bid amount was 303,347.
We can take that out of Hans's salary.
Done.
So if council wanted to support that, that'd probably be fairly easy. It's only about $4,000. So I just wanted to point that out to the committee, but I did have a question about that too, before we get too far along. The environmental components are marked as deletable, and on the tender document, they bid $48,588 for that. How are those environmental components deletable?
Because the piece for the west require a lot more work because of the other sections land exactly on the gravel, and that piece land into almost the big area, the wetland. So that environmental control and how you're gonna maneuver in that area is quite different than working just on the gravel.
Okay, so just to confirm that, if the west connection is deleted, the additional environmental costs are also deleted, correct?
So the environmental cost plus the work on the west side adds up to what, 95,000. I have the math here, 1 second. Yeah, so we have 4 deletable items in there. If I may bring that up, the environment, there's the environment, one section of the environmental is $9,488. That's the environmental deletable section. That's the amount, sorry. Yep, and so if you add all the boardwalk section, they would do the deletable items. The deletable items, one section, which was the timber amount, came up to $20,168. The screw piles is $26,968. The environmental is $9,488. So that's why I said you would be taking out all the environmental plus the screw piles and the boardwalk. And then you have a little bit more, my bad, you have more deletable items in there for environmental. That is the fishes captured and released, environmental assessment and protection measures. All those are deletable items. So if you add 9,488 plus 16,100 plus $23,000, you are at 36,580. That's all the works that need to be done for the environmental on that section.
Can I ask for a point of clarification?
Mhm.
What do you mean by deletable? Like, are you saying you're just not gonna worry about that section now, or are you saying you're gonna remove it, delete it?
No, so when you're tendering out.
If I may, my understanding from what you just said is that the deletable environmental items are attached to the west connection. So if the west connection is deleted, those environmental items aren't applicable anymore because they're only specific to the west connection, correct?
Correct.
So by deleted, you mean removed?
So if the west section is deleted, the west connection doesn't get done, those environmental
Yes, okay, that makes
items
sense.
don't need to be done either because they're directly connected to the west connection.
No, I get it. I just wanted to make sure that deleted didn't mean removed.
Yeah.
You're
No,
just
no,
being
no,
not
no,
done.
deleted from the tender.
Yeah, okay.
So just the reason why it had to be written like that, when you're writing a tender, if you if you don't put it in as deletables, then the contractor can't just pull it out of the tender. It's in there, so in there as deletable, we can just remove it and do the other scope without any implications.
Okay, very good. Anything that you wanted to add to that, Mr. Gonfalves?
No, thank you.
No, your cohort's covered. Okay. So we'll go to Tom and then Doug.
Okay, so this is turning into the mix and match. We pick the option and we go forward from there. Option A still is within the budgeted amount that's left over. Again, it's about a priority as far as is the accessibility and getting the ramps and the bridge usable the priority, or are there other things that need to be done? The simple bridge idea is there's some attachment to that, but I also see $52,000 to take the bridge out and then a $25,000 to $40,000 hydrological study before you put something back in. And does a simple bridge include the 2 lanes that we have now? Is it going to be as wide? There's a lot of conceptual questions with that, and does it save you money, or are we just barking up the tree again? I remain unconvinced either way anymore. As far as the money left over, like I say, option A seems to be, I'm leaning that way. Again, I'm still kind of on my back foot as to where we should go with that. And I imagine I'm going to have to come up with a better answer than I have in my head right now. But I think there's naturally there's very short time for discussion here, so maybe I'll just shut up.
Thanks, Tom. Doug has withdrawn. He's going to step away for a few minutes. Okay, committee, that's everybody I have in the speakers queue. Is there any specific direction or any other questions before we move forward? Okay, so not seeing anybody. Is there anything that committee wants to direct administration to make sure is included in the report that goes to council in a couple of weeks? This is coming to council on February 22nd for council's consideration. What they want to do regarding funding, if they want to fund the whole thing and find another $100,000 somewhere. Yeah, so basically, all the work except for the west connection is just over 300,000, which there's very close to that amount available. If it's full meal deal with the west connection and everything, the tendered amount is $399,072. So there'd be another approximately $100,000. This way.
Just something that hasn't been shared with council, but we are working internally administratively on an additional stackable grant to these ramps. So more money may become available. We don't know that yet, but it's something we started last year. So just for additional information, sorry.
Oh, it's useful.
Way to muddy the water.
Is that information possibly going to get to council at the same time, or that this was like?
What I can do, because we did just finally get a environmental approval, so that was part of the component for the grant. So what I can do is find out from Ms. Wade what the total amount is that we put in for and what the likelihood is percentage-wise that we might get on that. I can probably get an email out about that tomorrow.
I can speak to that.
Oh, Diana knows it.
Yeah, so we applied for a stackable grant when we got the construction estimate, and we're like, okay, this is, we may be out to lunch with the numbers that we have. So we applied for a stackable grant. It's $140,000. They were waiting on the AEP approval in order to move forward to make their decision. We submitted that a week or two ago. So now we're just waiting for the verdict. We don't know if we will get it. And to your question, if council will know that we applied for the grant, it is in my report. So yes, we will inform council about that.
Follow up, John?
I don't know Tom's first. Tom,
Was that, are you following up on the one you just asked, or is it? If it's follow up, you can go ahead.
no,
No,
I don't think
different
it was, Paul, I
one?
can't remember.
I'll put you back.
This
in
is
the
why
queue. Remember what it was?
I don't run for council.
Did I see your hand up too, Beth?
Yeah,
Okay,
yeah,
I had Tom first, and
Yeah.
I'll put you after Tom. Tom?
Oh,
yeah. You gotta wait now, yeah.
should have taken it.
Point of clarification, so the AEP approval has been received? Is that what, I'm sorry, I must have missed that in context.
Yes, the AEP approval has been received. We were fortunate when the AEP wrote to us identifying that they don't view the work that we were proposing to do any different than the work that is being conducted on the Beaver Boardwalk to date. So with that being said, they asked us to pull or withdraw our original application and resubmit based on these criteria, which they provided. We submit and they approved it.
Is that some kind of record?
Yeah.
I mean, I remember 4 to 6 months was kind of the standard.
Yeah.
And
It's the
this
new and
is-
improved environment and parks.
I know, we're
Okay,
really
okay.
fortunate to get it right now. One thing to mention, I know I said that we would get, AP would have put out a notice for, you know, not really stakeholder engagement, but just a notice because of how the new application that was approved, whatever it is now, because they view the work as the same work that is being done right now, that AP notice to the residents no longer applies. So where you would go on their website and voice your opinion and, you know, give your feedback, that is now taken away.
Hmm.
So, yeah.
Tom?
Sorry, there was conversation and I kind of caught that the approval was in and I was a little surprised by that as well. But no, I don't have any follow-up. Thank you.
No, and that's great to know, because basically that means as long as this gets council approval and the tenders awarded, they could start work immediately, more or less, correct?
Correct.
Yeah, great. Okay, thank you. I'll go to Beth.
Yeah, my question was, like I thought Heather had said, you got environmental approval, so that's been answered. Yeah. But, so just, I might as well ask another one on the bridge funding. So when would that, you know about this bridge funding, if it's to come in? Or the next
Grant.
Oh, the additional grant?
Or-
Diana, do you have a date on that? I
No.
know that when I asked, oh, no,
Yeah.
not that?
Yeah, no, when you're talking about what was your language? You asked for more money, the 140,000.
Yeah, so we did put in grant for an additional 140.
Yeah.
We just sent the final document that they needed. So it could be anywhere from 2 weeks to, I'd say, 2 months before we hear about the extra money. And I do have the communications assistant following up almost weekly to see when we can expect that money, or to at least know whether we're getting any money.
So, but to add to that, part of the issue is because it's a stackable grant, they would not approve the grant amount without the town getting approval to do this work. So we had to provide AEP's approval in order to get the money. So we have provided that. Now we're just waiting.
Okay, I'll go back to Jan.
I would like to put forward a motion that we decide on a plan of putting forward our ranked preferences to council. Starting with rank number 1 being the whole kit and caboodle for $399. And rank number 2 would be priority 1, I think you called it, the one in pink, where you go all the way to the shore. And I think someone said that that fell around 303,000, 303K. And then proceed down the list to, then the next one would be the one where we just bring the ramps to the red, in the red. I think that was option number 2. And then just go down the list.
So for clarity on, just as I'm looking at this, I think you want to go priority 1 pink, priority 2 green, priority 3 red, correct?
Okay, thanks for letting me see this. Priority 1 would be, I'm sorry, I'm touching your nose. How-
It's okay.
Priority 1 would be the whole, like including the west end.
Yeah.
So this, oh, wait,
So if I need,
My ranked.
I need a little bit of clarification, actually. I'll go to Ms. Weber right away because I think she's going to provide that clarification. I need to know what exactly was included in the tender document that Sure Seal provided the price for, because that's the package, right? So I don't really understand actually why we're looking at options right now, because there is a package that Sure Seal provided pricing for, and that's their intent to build on, correct? And I'll go to Ms. Weber.
So okay, go ahead. Deb.
I'll just turn it over to Diana to explain the tender and why we put some deletable items in there. And I think we need to explain a little bit more thoroughly what the deletable portions meant. And it was really a factor of administration trying to think ahead at what some of those potential options may look like for council, depending on the prices that come back in. So Diana went forward with a more robust tender option package that you got this full value for. And I'll let Diana go more through that. I just thought the reason I had my hand up was I was thinking, well, the committee is looking at what the options are that they want to put forward in steps. It might help to look through those images again, just so that everybody's super clear on what we're talking about. I just thought that might facilitate. Thank you.
Thank you, Debbie. So what was tendered was, if you have the drawings in front, the images in front of you right now, is the one that is purple.
Just,
One that is,
Show it, yeah.
do you want me to show it? Share my screen?
Yeah. It would be great if she showed us, well, because then there might be discrepancy between these two people.
It's true story.
I don't mean discrepancy in a negative way.
Are you seeing my screen?
Yes.
Okay,
Yeah.
so what was,
Yeah.
Can you zoom in on that, Diana, just to the colored areas so that it's super clear as much as you can? Perfect. I think that'll help. And then maybe just get rid of that legend on the right side.
$3.99.
Yes.
oh. Better?
Both sides if you can of your page, just to open it up as much, just to hit that little arrow halfway down the page, just to get rid of that. Yeah, just keep, there you go. Awesome. That's perfect. Thank you.
So what was tendered is the north side all the way to the trail, as well as the south side ramp, landing, and boardwalk. And the west side, as I'm moving my mouse here, this dogleg piece. However, this dogleg piece, it was put in the tender as a deletable item. As if you're looking at the tender right now, you'll see that. So this is what was tendered. And as Ms. Weber mentioned, we did a robust tender because we knew we wanted to have options to present to council with the fact that we know we may not come within council's approved budget of the 251.
So if I may, this is the full tender package that was that was bid at $399,072.07, correct?
Correct.
Okay, so then what's the next one I'd like to see is the one where it's just north and south, just going to the gravel, the pink. I think. Or red. Because that way you have access on both sides with ramps, which seems to be what council is looking for. So that is
270, I think I saw before it was scrolled away.
so that's two-way access to gravel,
Correct.
and that's 270 something.
It's actually construction estimated, well, 270, yes.
So with that option, you're losing that one whole side on the boardwalk.
Yeah.
Unfortunate, because that takes up that circular walk.
Well, we're not losing it. We just can't do it on this go around.
Yeah.
But that's why we're ranking it. And if you don't want to, that's fair. I'm just putting forward this as an idea to get this done.
Yeah.
The next option I see would be, I guess, just doing the north side, which to me, you're getting to the point where
I mean,
to me, I mean, if why is it the same price as, oh, because it goes all the way to the,
yes.
to me, that doesn't make sense to leave the south side not done.
Yeah, I agree, that doesn't, this one doesn't.
So I would go with number 1 and number 2. And I will say for the record, and don't hit me with an axe, but at this point, at this late in the game, I'm not prepared to put up the removal of the bridge as an option myself.
So before I go to Beth, I'm gonna jump in though, because there is another option.
Yeah.
Which is basically the full scope, but with the west connection removed. And the price for that one was bid at, yeah, that one, 303.
Oh, yeah, sorry. That would be my option 2 then.
Okay.
But that's to the shore.
Yep, that's.
Two-way access to shore.
One.
One
South isn't complete.
section is still got, the south side is still, sorry.
Still not
it's still
complete.
Land under gravel.
Oh, it's to gravel. Okay,
Yeah.
still, that would be, what's that price?
303.
303, because deleting.
Yeah, that's
the-
that, sorry, that number that's on there, that's the construction cost
Construction cost.
estimate.
Yeah.
But what was actually quoted for that was 303.
I'm picking up what you're laying down.
Yeah.
So I myself would put forward the motion that we provide our recommendation to council as being number 1, 3-way access, number 2, 2-way access to, 1 being to shore, 1 being to gravel at 303, and the third being 2-way access to gravel at 270.
We want to just use the colors. Yeah.
Or we just use the colors.
Okay, so there is a
I
proposed,
just had a.
yeah, one, yeah, I'm coming,
That-
to that,
that-
yeah,
oh,
just
sorry.
1 sec, sorry. I just want to remind committee now we have a proposed motion before us, so just keep in mind that we're talking about the proposed motion for now. I'm gonna go to Beth and then I have myself. Go ahead, Beth.
I just want a clarification on that 270. Can that be pulled out of this bid? Like, is that, because it wasn't that just an estimated cost, so if you went with the third ramps only, can you pull that out of the bid here?
Yeah, that was gonna be my question too, to administration, because that option didn't actually form part of the tender package and it's not listed as a portion of it being deletable. Is that even something that we could direct, or that you guys could direct the contractor to do for 270,000?
Are you speaking to option 1?
Color.
What
Yeah,
color?
which color?
Red.
Red,
So the red one for 270, if it was the will of this committee to recommend that option to council, is that even feasible considering that's not what the contractor bid on?
Yes, it is feasible.
So how would that be done then? How would that be communicated to the contractor? Because they understood the scope was, I believe it's the purple one. I don't have it in front of me. Yeah.
It would be for administration to go back to the contractor and speak to that. We've evaluated and, and the contractor understand that this is all going to council and it's a council decision. So it's for us to go back to him to say, this is the decision.
Okay, that was my question too. So I will go on, sorry. I didn't notice if it was Doug or Tom who had their hand up first. I'll go to
Go ahead
Doug.
there,
first.
go ahead there, Tom.
If you pare it down, can the contractor just wash his hands and walk away though? I mean, it's sort of a paradox. We get it in our budget, but is it then the contractor's right to say, well, if that's what I'm doing, I'm not that interested in doing it anymore. I just wonder.
Thanks, Tom. Yeah, over to administration. Since the scope's changing significantly from what they provided their bid price for, could they just say, no, I'm not interested in doing that, either do it all or don't do it?
I'm not going to rule it out that the contractor can't say no. But when this tender was being done, that was part, even though it's not showing on the document that section could be a deletable item, that was a conversation that happened before. So it's not new information to the contractor, with the understanding that we're going to go to council with this, even though it wasn't tendered that way.
Good, Tom. Doug?
Sorry, a question there from earlier. I just might have misunderstood. The grant, was it expiring December 2022 or December 2023? I just heard both answers. I wasn't sure which one was correct.
2023.
2023. Okay. The second question was, there was a couple of questions in regards to the technical specifications of the kind of the original design. Things such as your piling strength and the design to S6 versus the Alberta Building Code. Were any of those answered?
So the answer to that is the S6 is, I know you're saying it's bridge code, but let me find the information out. So I'm giving it to you correctly. So
Okay.
I write it down.
While you're looking that up, Ms. Daly Beckford, that was part of the agenda package for this meeting. All the questions were listed out with the answers provided by
Oh,
administration.
sorry. I did not realize that the answers were already provided. My mistake. I will have a quick read here, and maybe if I have any other questions, I'll speak up again later. Thank you.
Yeah, no problem. That's
I didn't find that answer very satisfying myself, because I think you're asking why, not like why design to S6 standards rather than the Alberta Building Code.
yeah, sure. So if you want to ask administration to expand on the answer that they gave, that's fine.
Please.
So administration, anybody want to respond to that? There's a question for why that piling spec was used.
So the piling stack that was used is pretty much what is used for bridge and pedestrian. So based on building code, that's what they had to use because what we're putting in is actually a pedestrian ramp. So they had to do the engineering design based on that. If that answers your
I
question.
don't know, Doug, if you have any insight on that or not.
Sorry, I'm trying to find the meeting minutes with the answers on them.
Yeah.
That's my
I found
bad.
it here. It's all bridges are designed to S6, including pedestrian walkways.
Is that part of the Alberta Building Code? Sorry, is that part of Alberta Building Code, or what safety code does that fall under in terms of bridge design?
Yeah, no, you can design boardwalks to the Alberta Building Code. They don't need to be designed to S6. That's not correct.
So it's not boardwalk though, it's bridges specifically that they're speaking to that have to be designed to S6. So
Yes,
I'm just
bridges
asking what code that applies to. Sorry, that's to administration. I was just wondering.
I'll do a little bit more research on that because I'd reached out to the engineer, and that was the answer provided, that all bridge design is designed to S6, including pedestrian boardwalk.
We're not designing the bridge, it's already there, you're just putting ramps down and boardwalks.
Yeah.
But as mentioned, as well as boardwalks, pedestrian boardwalk, and I guess the word pedestrian is because it's not, you could have somebody with a wheelchair that has a certain weight, not necessarily person that is on foot. So it still has to bear a certain amount of weight, if that makes sense.
So I can, oh, sorry.
Well, that's fine. Go ahead, Doug.
Oh, I can say that doesn't make much, I mean, the boardwalk up in St. Albert here in Edmonton, I can't remember what it's called, the Johnny Pool Wetland Boardwalk or something like that. I mean, that was just designed to the Alberta Building Code. It wasn't designed to S6. It has been done before. The bit about piles too. I mean, it says, yeah, the difference in cost is minimal for the 50 to 60 kilonewton piles. I guess what I was coming to there is that many of those piles don't need to be 50 or 60. They could be 20 kilonewtons. And I remember 2 meetings ago, there was a very short sketch of a pile for the boardwalk upgrade elsewhere. That was a different project, and those were just 20 kilonewton piles. So, I mean, they don't need to be 50 or 60. Many of them don't.
So to answer that question is, the engineers stick to one size because of the as mentioned in the answer in the question there, the costing is so minimal. It kind of makes sense to just go with one size to not have confusion while doing the installation. Just stick to, so you don't have a 20 a 50 or a 60 or a 20. The 60 does work for everything, as opposed to having different size.
Okay. I mean, we use different piles all the time in private industry. We'll have a pile schedule. You have 4 or 5 different piles on a building. It's standard.
It adds cost though, when you're specifying all the different piles, especially for such a small area, that you have to order all the different types and whatnot.
Yeah.
I have no problem going with the standard 50 or 60 kilonewton pile.
So I'll speak frankly, and I apologize. I don't intend to cause any offense if I do. But there was a professional engineering consultant contracted to come up with a design for this. I don't really think that it's in the scope of this committee's work to review the work that the professional engineering consultant did and provided. I think this group's task is more to take a look at the project from a higher level and make the recommendations based on that. So if there's anything further on that, we can continue, or we can request some additional information from administration that comes back. But I prefer that that we move on. It's 5:30 already, and I'd like to be able to hash out some recommendations that can actually go back to council in a couple weeks, so council can consider some options.
I'm good with that. I can move on that piece. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Doug. Okay, is there anything further?
Yeah, on these questions,
Yep, go ahead, Doug.
on the elevation survey for review, there's a question. I just didn't understand. The answer was a ramp from the west extension to existing has been designed for a temporary tie-in. Is that from the end of the west extension to the, I guess there's going to be another little ramp going down from the new boardwalk at the point where it's connecting the existing? Is that what that means?
So is that question 4, Beth?
Question four.
Question 4, okay. Administration?
So you're asking if, on the south side, if we're gonna have, what is that section of boardwalk for? Is that the question you're asking me?
On the north side, the west extension, like the question was, do we have an elevation survey for review, in particular reference to the west boardwalk section?
What number question is that, Beth? Sorry.
Number 4. I just wanted to clarify the answer, the last question, or the last sentence in the answer. Is that like a little extra ramp going down from presumably the new boardwalk to the existing, which is partly submerged right now?
Yeah, they'd need another
Yes.
ramp, but it does seem that, I mean, it's quite a bit of cost for that west section anyways now.
So yes,
So administration, is there anybody that can provide any clarity to that?
Maybe I'll give it a shot.
Yep.
So when, let's say that west loopy would be made, the height, the end height of that loop would be higher than the existing boardwalk that's there. So when the existing boardwalk is not touched all the way to the learning place, to the open classroom, that section is not touched, then there has got to be a temporary little rampy going down from the new loop, basically, that ends at the water over there, to connect. It still means that if people would take that, they would end up with a little temporary ramp on an old boardwalk that's probably get them wet feet if the water goes up again, because that has not been touched all the way to the learning place. Yeah, so we know that when boardwalk is going to be redone, especially in that section along the creek, it has to be higher in the end. It has to be rebuilt higher. Thank you.
Does that make sense, Steph?
Yep. Yes, thanks.
Okay. Okay, anything further, committee? There is still that motion that we have to consider and vote on as well, so
I'll
just
make
keep
it
that in
sound so
mind.
bad.
Can you make callers again?
So one thing I did want to, oh, sorry, go ahead, Doug. You can go
Oh,
ahead.
just a question about Jan's motion. Do we need to answer the motion first, or can we propose kind of a counter, an alternative? How does it work? Sorry, do we need to vote on that motion first, or can we propose an alternative idea?
So we could propose amendments if there's something you want to change in Jan's proposed motion. Or we could call it to question, and if it passes though, that's kind of the end of it. That's the direction. There could be some additional direction recommendations after that, but that would be included in the recommendations. So yeah, that's kind of the options. Yeah, if there's something in particular you want to change, I would suggest proposing an amendment to Jan's motion. Or if not, we can just let it be called the question, vote on it. And then some additional recommendations can be made beyond that, depending on whether it passes or not.
Okay, my amendment, I guess, and maybe Jan, correct me if I don't do this correctly, but your proposal was the ramps to gravel. Did I understand that correctly, Jan? That was the number 1 selection you made?
Number 1 selection is the purple selection, which is all 3 accesses And it would be the west end and the north and south to the shore. At a
So it's
cost of-
everything. The everything
at a
option.
cost of $399, which is the original tendered job.
Okay, sorry, I misunderstood. Okay, so the motion is the full blown deal.
No, my motion is to rank our request to council. So rank number 1, I would put that as number 1.
Okay,
Ranked preference number 2 would be the pink, which is two-way north and south access to the shore. And the rank number 3 would be the red, which is, number 2 is north and south. One going to the shore, one going to the gravel. Number 3 is two-way access to gravel.
okay,
So option 1 is basically everything that was tendered, including the west connection. Option 2 is everything that was tendered except the west connections deleted. And then option 3 is ramps that just go from the bridge elevation down to gravel. That's it. Correct? Yeah.
Thank you. Yeah.
and the west one, then that would require additional funds that was budgeted for the everything option. And not including that west connection was no additional funds. Sorry, I should have taken better notes. That's entirely my fault.
That's okay. So there's about $300,000 left that's available. The cost of Jan's option 2 is about $300,000. So that's full meal deal with the west connection deleted. And the third option, where they just both go to gravel, is estimated to be about $270,000.
So to answer your question, yeah, number 1 rank, we would be looking for extra funds.
Yes.
And do I have a chance to speak to this at all?
Oh, yeah, that's.
The reason why I'm putting that out there is just to say to council, yeah, we understand it's over, but this is what we as a committee want to work for this area of the boardwalk. But we understand that if you choose that that's just too much money right now, then number 2 is our next preference.
Okay, so Doug, are you good then, or did you want to make an amendment?
My amendment is, I really don't like that full meal option at that additional cost. I'm a big proponent of when you pick a number, you stick to it. But how about this? My amendment would be, if we do think that's, and I agree that that is what we ultimately want. I definitely want that west connection too. But my amendment would be, if that grant is open until December 2023, and we only have one bidder on this project, I would suggest to wait it out and try again and see if you can't get an additional bidder at some other point, given, and go for the winter 2022 construction season.
Okay, so we would have to capture that amendment and then vote on that, but just, sorry, 1 second, Ms. Wade.
I just wanted to, I know that Doug stepped away for a second and I just wasn't sure. Doug, were you here when we chatted about the additional grant that may offset that $399, or had you stepped away at that time?
Oh, no, I didn't, sorry.
Yeah, so I had just informed the group while you were away that to get the full meal deal, so the purple option, a few months ago, we had recognized that we might come up short with respect to what council had budgeted. So we do have another stackable grant that we should be hearing back anywhere from 2 weeks to 2 months. That's up to 140,000. So we would have the funds to do the full meal deal, and that is becoming part of the report that Miss Daly Beckford is taking to council in the coming weeks.
Oh, and we just have to wait 2 weeks to 2 months to hear back on that? Because that sounds very good.
So Doug, I have a question then, and it might affect how you want to make an amendment. All things being equal, if we had a big pot of money, would you want that west connection in there or no?
If we had a big pot of money, absolutely, yes.
Okay. So earlier too, I heard you say, I'm pretty sure it was you said that you didn't want that extra $100,000 to be funded through taxation, and I'm assuming that includes a debenture as well. because that ultimately gets paid back through taxation. But would you be willing to consider putting some kind of condition on, we want to go with the full meal deal. However, on the condition that the extra 100,000 is funded through a grant or could be funded through reserves. I don't know what's available in reserves right now. I don't have those numbers in front of me, but there may be a reserve that could be tapped into to access that other $100,000. So I don't think it necessarily has to be that that's off the table because the money's not currently available, but there certainly could be some conditions on that recommendation. Ms. Daly Beckford, did you want it? Oh, sorry. I'll let you respond to that first, Doug.
Yes, if there's this additional add-on grant, if it is available and approved within that time that we hear about, that then makes that amount, achievable, and then absolutely, yeah, I agree. That sounds like a really good idea. And if not, I like the way Jan phrased it, where he said, well, that's option one, but then option two is a lower level scope within the approved budget.
So just before I go to Jan, I'm going to let Ms. Daly Beckford respond.
No, I just want to highlight two things. I think Ms. Weber mentioned this before about the market and what's happening in the market and the potential for increased costs and those things. I also want to mention that the full meal deal, as Jan said that he wanted, the West Connection still does not connect to the boardwalk because that area is underwater, as you guys know. So you're building that boardwalk to go nowhere unless you get more money to fix the area that's underwater to connect to that west side. So you spend this money to do that, but then when you get there, you can't move any further. So that's what I wanted to highlight. Thanks.
I certainly appreciate that clarification because
All that is underwater.
yeah, building that connection right now when it may be some time, if ever, before that section that's currently underwater can get rebuilt. That's a good question to ask ourselves if that's really what we want to recommend to council or not. Thanks. I'm gonna go to Jan and then Tom.
Well, no, like Diana just kind of torpedoed me right out of the water with that. It's hard for me to comment on that. I think I've heard from everyone here that they ultimately don't want to lose any of the current boardwalk. So our full intention is to rebuild everything over the years to come. But I totally get what Diana's saying, and that makes sense. I mean, but I guess I would ask the question: is it worthwhile for us to do it now? I know the answer is going to be no. So I'm done. Well, because what I'm about to say is go ahead and do it, and we just say no, it's going nowhere for now, but it's going to go somewhere, and we're getting this part done now while we have the money.
Well, and arguably, I just wonder if that helps the committee prioritize future endeavors when if we spend all this extra grant money to get that west, what are we calling it, dog leg, then in the event or when it comes time to start planning, we'll go, okay, well, the next priority section is connecting this together. Yeah, it just makes your job a little bit easier, but that's just my thoughts.
Virtual high fives.
Yeah.
Okay.
I did have my hand up initially before the torpedo, was that I really liked Albert's, I guess I would call it an amendment about saying, as long as we find a grant or something to cover that off.
Yeah,
it doesn't even necessarily need to be this grant. Maybe it's like, could be some other.
So I think it's as simple as adding an amendment to say not to be funded through taxation or debenture.
So I would focus.
So that basically leaves the door open. Go find it in a reserve somewhere, go get a grant for it somewhere. Or if you don't want it coming out of reserves, then put that in there too. Not to be funded through taxation, debenture, or reserves. So that's the conditions you put on it, and then that gives direction. If council wants that, they direct administration, go find some grant money to do this with. So, or there's the discussion now that You know, is that something we want to prioritize now? Or do we want to make that west connection when that section of underwater boardwalk gets rebuilt at some point in the future? The connection up to the plaza area is part of that project. Lots to talk about. I got a few people in the queue here, but I do want to remind committee it is 5:45. There's at least one more item that we have to get through tonight because it's coming back to council on the 22nd. So I want to try and move forward with this expeditiously if we can. Ms. Daly Bedford, I'm going to go to you. I think you want to respond, and then I've got Tom, and then Doug, and then Beth. You're muted.
I take down my hand. I was just going to mention the expiry for the environmental approval, with the fact that we're thinking to postpone the project. And I went back and looked at the approval to see when it truly expires. So effective date is February 2nd, 22nd, and the approval expires 2034. I'm wondering if that's an error, but yes, it actually expires 2034, December 1st.
Excellent foresight, putting it in for 2034.
Oh,
Sorry, can I clarify? Is that's the grant or the AEP approval?
that's AAP approval. I was thinking if we delay the project and wait, we would have to reapply. Yes, we got lucky the first time to get it really early with the fact that we have to spend this money by 2023. So I wanted to confirm what was the expiry date for the AEP approval. And when I looked at it, it expires 2034, December 1st. So yeah. So I'll take my hand down.
Well, before you run away, just quickly, sorry, what's the grant deadline? Because I had thought actually that it was December 31st, 2022. Because I thought the work either had to be done this winter in what's remaining of it, or next winter before the end of December.
That's what I thought.
So
You're
No,
muted
you're
again.
muted again.
Not sure how that happened.
Oh,
my bad, I apologize. So when we originally applied for the grant, the original date we received said the grant would have expired 2022. But when we received the official approval, they've extended the grant to 2023, December 2023.
So December 31st, 2023.
Oh,
Okay, so there's.
Okay. Okay, Tom.
oh, Doug.
Heather kind of stole my idea, which is fine. Essentially, the full mill deal sounds good, but the west section may not be as vital at this point in time. And then do you split the project and say, okay, so the west section now includes a tie-in to whatever however ramp is built there. If you're going to raise that section of boardwalk, it's going to change that transition as well. But just sort of that same idea where I like the full mill deal, get what you can for the money and the time, but also understanding that west section has to be replaced. And if a tie-in to whatever gets built there would be part of that tender at that time, I guess that's all I really wanted to say on that one. Thank you.
Thanks, Tom. You got Doug and then Beth.
There's a couple of committee members that maybe have been a bit quieter. I'm just curious if maybe if you guys, like Trevor and Vicky, if you guys have any thoughts on Jan's proposal there, if you guys want to share your thoughts there. I don't know if I'm allowed to request input.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, I'll speak first if that's right.
Yep.
To be honest, I like the options that Jan's proposed, and I'm ready to vote, to be honest. So I agree about the west connection. Do we think we could in the future that portion that's being proposed within this project, if we were to focus on doing the entire west loop, could we build that small amount for $93,000, which is the difference in the pink option versus the purple option? And I think if we were to propose or revisit that additional west connection in the future as part of a future project, I think we could probably build that for less than $93,000. So and it leaves us the option of readjusting the alignment in the future. So that's just my thoughts. I'm ready to vote.
Sorry, who was the other committee member you wanted to hear from? Doug?
Vicky,
Oh, Vivian.
Vivian, sorry.
Oh,
Sorry, oh my God.
Yeah, I thought I heard Vicky, but I was like, sure.
that's my,
Sorry.
my bad.
No, that's okay, no problem. Yeah.
What was the question? about?
They were wanting to know what you thought about what were this motion, what was our idea here?
I'm not up for waiting. I am up for getting it tendered and getting it started. Maybe we won't get as much, but that's the direction I'd like to go in.
Anything further, Doug, before I go to Beth?
No, that's all. Thanks.
Beth?
Yeah, just the west connection. I think it's an important connection. So if you do put the dog leg in, then obviously, in my mind, that would come right to the top of the priority of what do we do next. It's short. It's one of the shortest ones, so it'd be one of the cheapest ones. It's a very important one, connecting, like connecting the outdoor classroom and the main trail, like it. So really, I mean, if you start doing that, if we do have the money, you know, if you can cover it off in not raising taxes, then yeah, the full meal deal makes sense. I think it's 1.5 meters. I don't know if we need that for the dog leg. You do for the main trail because it's the main trail. That width there is, I'm not sure you need that, but yeah, okay, so I want to make a comment on the west section. I think it's an easy for this group to put it right at the top of the priority. What do we do next in terms of upgrading, you know, opening sections? So, yeah.
Okay. Jan?
Just with the hope that this sells everyone to finally vote. If we do it now, the west little leg, for the time being, that could be almost like a platform, like just somewhere for people to go and hang out for the time being until it gets carried on. Like hopefully it could be closed in at the end kind of thing. Anyways, that's it.
That's my understanding. I'd love the administration to confirm that though. If the west connection is deleted, the plaza still gets constructed for future west connection, does it not?
Yes, it does. You
Yeah.
get that boardwalk and that landing, so you could connect to it in the future. Yes.
Okay. So,
That plaza would just be the width of what you needed. It wouldn't be extra. That's right. It would just be the width of what you needed to make the connection.
Mhm.
Okay, yeah, because I don't have the width. Yeah, oh, okay, so yeah, you're not putting a big thing below the vertical. Yeah, okay, this is just that big. Yeah. Okay, but there's nothing here. This is just the ramp down.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, but it's wider.
Okay, because curious why. Why is the north ramp wider than the south?
sorry, okay, if we're gonna have a discussion
Yeah.
about stuff, we need to put it up on the big screen so everybody can see what we're talking about.
Diana, can you put back the blue that's now seen as the purple, whatever? And explain why the north ramp is wider than the south ramp. That's the question.
And you're muted.
Sorry.
And it doesn't matter which color you put up, but we prefer blue. so that you can show and tell why the north ramp is wider than the south ramp? That was the question.
Okay. So the north ramp it was wider in order to do that connection piece. So based on how it is right now, if it was narrower or big, it's two things. We had to get that signage in. So you don't want to have the signage that is in the walkway of the boardwalk. So we have to put the sign in. Now we're going to take the sign that was right here and now put it on the boardwalk. And we made it a little bit wider to accommodate the sign, one, and to do the connection here. If you had made it narrow just as the south side, the sign would be in the middle of the walkway, if that makes, in the middle of the ramp.
That doesn't make sense to me. I don't even think you need the sign there. Like, why? Why not just that when you get down to the wetland, kind of just like what it was before? I have no visual of what you're doing. You're sticking a sign in the middle of the,
What is the sign for?
like the
It's
ramp.
already there. Sorry, it's the sign, it's the signboard that's already standing in the wetland on the big post.
Yeah,
And what's on the signboard?
Sorry?
it's
What
the
is it?
introduction to the whole
Oh,
Yeah.
Beaver Boardwalk. This was the very first start
Yeah.
of it. Yeah.
And
That's taken.
sorry, Beth, just to go back to, and the engineer and myself, we went over this a couple of times as well, because if you notice, ramping down and then trying to get the landing to get the turn for the wheelchair accessible, we couldn't just ramp down based on the, what do you would say now, the elevations because of how high the bridge is. So you had to ramp down, then get the landing in place, and then do that connection piece. So this is all based on design and levels, elevation levels based on ramping down from the height of the bridge as well.
Right. Yeah, I guess I've just assumed the landing would be wide enough for whatever wheelchair turn you needed, but. Okay, I don't understand part of what you're doing with the sign, that's all. Doesn't make sense.
So the signage that was there would have been right in the spot where we're starting the dog leg here.
Right?
So we have to remove it either way. So the idea, after being out there, realized that the sign, I think maintenance had to go out and even cut it a few times. So now the sign gets shorter. Okay, just to eliminate that whole maintenance aspect of it, just take the sign out of the water and put it on the boardwalk. So it cuts down the cost for maintenance for that as well.
Is it gonna be higher than the ramps? Hopefully not. Or higher than the handrails, like, well, like it's a big enough sign.
Any clarification on where the sign's gonna be mounted?
We can choose, the committee can choose where on the boardwalk you can put the sign, but we had it just about here.
Okay.
I just, if I may, can I?
Yeah.
I don't, from what I'm hearing, I don't think it's the sign that is the number one reason for the width. It's the being able to come down the ramp and make that turn onto the west end.
Yes.
So I don't think we need to hold this up
No,
because,
I don't, the sign, I think we.
and I think we can
do.
work out the sign. I
Yeah.
don't, I think we can.
It sounds like.
And I myself I don't mind it being a little bit wider there.
The sign, it sounds like could be a visual nightmare, and something stick up and you realize, oh, we shouldn't have put that there, so.
Yeah, I think we can figure
You
that.
can figure that out, yeah, yeah.
Okay, so seeing no one else in queue, I did want to speak quickly before we call the motion question. Being the chair, I can't put forward any amendments or motions or anything like that. But I do like to have a condition put on the full meal deal option, which I believe is the purple one. I would be comfortable that the recommendation that comes from the committee is that the amount in excess of available dollars be funded through grant. That means that it doesn't get funded out of reserves, it doesn't get funded through taxation, and we won't be borrowing money to fund it with. So if there's, if there's somebody on the committee that agrees with that, I would appreciate if somebody put forward that amendment.
I'll put forward that amendment.
Okay. Okay. So are there any other amendments or anybody want to speak to the proposed amendment before we call that to question? Okay. So seeing no one that wants to speak to it, we're going to vote. This is just on the amendment first. So this is to see if the amendment winds up included in Jan's original motion. So the amendment is, I don't know, did somebody capture it?
The amount in excess of available funding gets paid out of grant money.
Okay. Trevor, did you get that? So it's reflected in the minutes?
Hang on. The amount in excess of the available grants or in excess of available funding will be through grant.
Yep. Okay, Doug?
Just a question in regards to that. That additional grant had a lead time to confirm it, and it does sound like that lead time confirm it is going to move it out of the winter construction season. If it was 2 weeks to 2 months, so we would kind of push it naturally into winter 2022. Does that kind of make an issue on that amendment or no? I like the amendment. I'm just thinking out loud.
We are in winter 2022 right now, and we just found out that the grant goes all the way through to the end of 2020.
No, I mean that what Heather mentioned there, that additional amount there that she mentioned because basically if we go for the full option, it is in excess of what is available. So we need that additional second grant, and that one had not been approved yet and was still being researched.
Right, I understand what you're saying. It might be a couple months before we find out if we got that grant or not. And considering construction could be starting, beginning of March, if that's going to screw up the contractor in the sense that they might have to come back to do that work once that grant money is available, which means they have to come back next winter.
Yeah.
So to administration, does that question make sense? Can you speak to that?
It does make sense. Oh, sorry, Diana. Go ahead. It does make sense, but again, while you had stepped away, Doug, that's kind of just the time frame that the grant jurors had given us. I do have an administrator calling quite regularly.
Okay.
Kind of pestering them, you might say. So yeah, on the grant side of things, I'm expecting we'll hear very shortly. We've been working on that grant for quite some time, and we're just waiting for the approval. So even the grantees were kind of just waiting for us to find that approval. So on the construction side of things, though, and how that would work with the contractor, I will go to Diana for that. Thank you.
Thank you, Heather. So to add to that, if you are not going to award the project, you have 35 days to award the contract. If you're thinking of waiting if you don't award and you want to wait to see if you are going to get the grant, the tender becomes null and void. Like, you will definitely have to retender. If you are saying we are going to award the contract with this notion to do the north and the south, if we get the grant, then we can proceed to do the west, because then you've already awarded the contract, right? So just putting that out there. You have 35 days to make a decision. Go ahead, Debbie.
I'd just like to qualify that we are definitely also constrained by the requirement of what is considered winter work by Alberta Environment. So the longer we wait for that grant, it pushes us further and further into the possibility that they won't allow us to do any activity because we're outside the winter period. That's my only caution.
Have they given
What is?
What do you, have they given an official date? I mean, winter is ever changing.
So to answer that, there's not really an official date. It is how you are planning to do this work within the conditions that we say you should do it. So if, like with the freeze-thaw situation that's happening right now, if it starts to melt, APMint will not allow you to go in there in the wetland and work. So it's just depending on what's happening with the weather. So it's not really a specific date, like from December to say January, no. It's just the conditions.
So what I would recommend is that if the amendment and the motion, if that's the will of this committee, and that's what you guys want to see put in the recommendation to council, just go ahead and support it and let council and administration figure it out down the road. That'll be theirs to figure out. Ultimately, the decision ultimately lies with council anyways. So these are just recommendations. Council, I'm sure, will do their diligence with administration to make sure that it's workable before they give the direction that that's truly how they want to go. So that's just my recommendation to the committee. If that's what you want to see, then we'll call it the question and support it. It'll get figured out later.
I mean, ultimately, we're just asked what our preference is. So
Yep.
Not to find all the details.
Correct. Tom?
Just a quick question. Now, the Water Act approval, I think you're good till about April 16th. Is that correct? I can't remember the date exactly, but I think you can operate up till then. And of course, that's dependent on weather and some other things. I understand that part of it, but I think after April 16th, you're shut down for 3 months, 2 months. I can't remember the specifics. I think it's the end of June, but so, I mean, we're talking about a fairly tight, finite timeline here.
More reason to vote this in.
Yeah. Okay. Thanks, Tom. Sorry, Beth, did you have your hand up?
No.
No, okay.
Yeah.
Okay, if there's no further comments or clarification required, then we'll call the amendment question. Can you read it again, Johan? Sorry.
That the amount in excess of available funding gets paid out of grant.
Thank you, Johan. All those in favor? Opposed? Okay, that's carried unanimously. Great. Okay, so now that is included in the original motion. So we are back to Jan's original motion. So Jan, just to refresh us all, could you read that with the amendment included in it?
Jesus Christ.
It was a long time ago.
Okay, so our preference is to rank this in order of, we're bringing this in order of preference. So number one preference is three-way access to shoreline at 399K. It's the purple option, and the amount in excess of available funding gets paid out of grant. Our number two ranking of preference is two-way, north and south, north being to the shore, south being to gravel at 303K, and it's the pink option. And our third ranking of preference is two-way access to gravel at approximately 270K, and that is the red option.
Awesome. Thank you. Yeah. Committee, any comments or questions before we call this one question?
I think like if this is all the options, then I think this is a good way to go. But I still think that there are other options that could be cheaper and do more. So I'm just putting that out there. And avoid some of the problems of connecting and elevations and all of that.
So yeah, that's fine. If this isn't the preferred option, not the one that you support, then you just vote against it. And if it's defeated, then we can come up with some other ones.
Yeah, or, yeah, whatever. Yeah, okay, I thought I'd just say that, though. I think there are other options that probably would be cheaper and actually do more. But
Doug?
And option 2 still had the connectability to the west there at a future date. I just wanted to confirm, it was confirmed before. I just want to make sure that we could then build that later on without complicating anything.
That's correct. The plaza feature would still be built into it and it would be available there for future west connectivity.
Okay, sounds good. Thanks.
Jan, did you have something you wanted to know? Okay. Okay, seeing nothing further, then we will call Jan's original motion, including the amendment question. All those in favor? Opposed? Okay, and that was carried. 6 to 1. And Beth was against. We record that. Do we?
No,
Do we record the vote?
we do record the vote.
Okay, so the vote was 6 in favor, it passed 6-1. Okay. Committee, is there anything?
So I hate to ask this, but
No, that's fine.
does Beth now have the option of raising up her own? I'm just asking to make sure.
So,
that-
yeah, we are still open to additional recommendations, but keeping in mind though, that recommendation as being approved by committee as the recommendation for how
Okay,
council
so I
moves
just want
ahead.
everyone to be happy.
So if there's additional recommendations though, for example, that I know the removal of the gravel was an option that could potentially be added. If that's a recommendation that committee wants included in the report that goes to council, that can be put forward as a potential recommendation or anything else, whatever. We haven't moved beyond it yet, so.
So do you want to put forward anything?
well, that's a good point there. Like we really haven't discussed a lot of like the other bits of the options, like removal of gravel. Wasn't that a question? Like removal of gravel, and the answer was it can be added as an optional item. Gravel and weeping tower removal. So just refresh me, like, and someone else could jump in here. There's a bunch of little details here that we really didn't, I think, well, maybe you can't change this part on the bridge, but Doug had raised a good point that you don't need some of the top of the handrail structure for integrity. So can we replace that with wood and something that makes better, or is that down the road? Like I think we really haven't gotten into those level of details here. So someone else can jump in, but especially the gravel removal, like I'm assuming in the contract that they're to remove the bits of the bridge that are still floating around underneath there. That's correct. Yeah, so at least that's minimal to do, but do we want to discuss that level of detail at this point? Like any more, like?
Okay, is that directly to that, Mr. Von
Yes, it is. Yeah, thank you. I think only the gravel might be, let's say, advantageous to do that now, because if the boardwalk and the ramps are going to be built all the way up to the north shore, it's going to be a harder task to do it afterwards.
Yeah.
I'm not sure how much it's going to delay, of course, the work to dig it out right now, but to do it afterwards would not be a smart idea to say, okay, now 5 months later, let's talk about it and come up with the idea then. That's the one that I see only if I, or maybe now is a discussion.
I'm gonna go to Diana.
So to address the gravel issue, we can't just go in there and say we're gonna go and dig gravel out. AEP will let the town know if we need to take the gravel out. That is, we have to do that based on their direction. It is not for us to go in there and take the gravel out. And I think in the last meeting, one of the, it was mentioned that we want to take all the creosote ties out. Now, it all depends on when AEP, once we break ground and they come on site and start to do their inspections, they will tell us what to do. If they feel that the creosote tiles is dangerous, or we have to take it out, or how deep it is, because that creosote tile has been there for years. AEP will dictate what we do. We don't make the decision to take the gravel or do any work. They tell us what to do. So just to be clear on that.
Okay, thank you for that. John?
No, these guys, Doug and Tom.
Yeah, I have Doug and Tom. Yeah, I was just asking. I thought I saw your hand. I just wanted to
It
make
was
sure.
to be next to the list.
Doug, Tom, and then Jan.
I'm finding this maybe a little bit challenging because I think there's lots of things in the process that I've raised questions about that I think seem off to me, but at the same time, I mean, we only got 2 hours, so I think we got to rely on the administration to take care of the details, and we just kind of provide advice occasionally, because it is 6:17 now. So I guess I don't really know where I'm going with this question, more so than saying I think we've certainly done our part here today, and I appreciate Jan kind of summarizing that in a point where we could vote on it. And I'm kind of out of gas tonight, honestly, myself.
Okay, thanks for that, Doug. Unfortunately, though, we do have one more item that we do have to do today. So, Tom?
Just a quick on taking the gravel out. I guess my wonder there is to, once you take the gravel out, you have a hole, you have a void. And if you're getting guidance from AEP, we're gonna have to put something back in, because that could have an adverse reaction to the hydrological flow of things. I mean, I'm not aware of, I don't have a professional certificate in anything that qualifies me to say that, but we're obviously going to have to put something back in, I'm thinking. So other part of the project, there's just, it grows as far as, well, one, if we can do it, if they want us to disturb it. I mean, creosote ties, weeping tile, I've heard a number of things, but basically, I think there's more to the scope of the taking the gravel out than taking the gravel out.
Okay, thank you, Tom. Jan?
First is a question, how and when is AEP going to analyze this situation about creosote and the gravel? I mean, are you saying that they're already booked to come in and look at this, or what's the situation with that?
Administration?
You're muted.
As you know, we are mandated to remove the bridge, the old bridge that is under the new bridge. And I'm just using this as example, is when that scope of work was supposed to be done, we put a call into AEP to say, hey, we're going to be doing this on this day. And it's for them to schedule somebody to come out to make sure it's done. Because part of the problem was the contractor mitigation strategy was to use chains and attach it to the old bridge and pull it out, but then it was breaking off into little bits of pieces. But little did we know that the contractor could actually go in the water dressed in properly and remove it. So lesson learned, AEP is really saying when you are going to do that part of the work, if you know you have creosote ties, or if you know you have this, you give us a call and we will give you direction as to what to do.
I'm getting a little bit confused here, because I'm hearing that, it sounds like we have to do this, or we should be doing this. Hans is pointing out that it's going to be really advantageous to do it before any work gets done. But you're saying, or I'm hearing, that we don't go to AEP until we start doing work. It really makes decision-making kind of hard. Like if AEP is going to give us some wild direction that we're not expecting, then that's going to change everything. So how are we supposed to make it direct? Like, I would rather see them come in and say, yes, you have to do this. No, you don't have to do this.
So I just want to remind committee one more time that these are only recommendations to council. So if it's something that you want to see done, don't worry about the details. Just put it out there and say, I want I want to move to recommend that the gravel gets removed, whatever it is that you want. We
Okay,
vote on it as a group. If it passes, it goes into the recommendations, and then it's up to council and administration to sort out how it gets done, or if it even can't. If it can't get done, administration will tell council when they present it to us, this is a recommendation of the committee. However, it can't be done because this is the reason. And then council will move forward on that however they feel is appropriate. So, yeah, just to try and expedite things, we don't have to hammer out every single detail of how the things get done here tonight. It's just, if it's something you want to see, put it out there and let somebody else sort out the details. Yeah, and that's going to be my recommendation, actually, to move this along. I don't want to see the committee throwing things out and say, let's talk about this, let's talk about that. Now, if it's something you want to see, put it out there as a motion, we can discuss it, vote on it, and then move on. Because as has been pointed out, it's quite a bit after 6 yet now, and we've got one more item we do have to get through tonight. So yeah, if anybody has any other recommendations that they want to get out there to see if they're going to be included or not, I recommend that you put them out there, and then we can discuss and vote on them. Sorry, Ms. Becker, did you have a comment? You see your virtual hand is up.
Sorry, I'll just take it down, sorry.
Okay, yeah, no problem. Yep. Okay, so committee, is there anything further, any additional?
Well, I think we should at least attempt to have some of that gravel removed, and you don't have to dig way down. If you just take the top layers off, slowly the water and the vegetation will grow under, and I don't think you need to put anything in, but those are details that, can be sorted out too. But I really think if it's not clear that the creosote should be removed, that we should make a recommendation that the creosote be removed, and as much as the gravel as reasonable.
Okay. So you want to put that motion forward?
Yeah, I can
Okay.
do that.
If you could word it concisely so Trevor can capture it, and then we can
speak loudly.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, so the motion is that the committee recommends creosote ties be removed, and as much as the gravel removed as is reasonable. I don't know
Okay.
if someone can, does that work?
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, and you've spoken to it quite a bit, but did you want to speak to it anymore?
Yeah, like really, the town has put in gravel year after year after year, which is fine. So what you've done is sort of built up this little road base. And so the water is actually channelized now in the channel, whereas if you didn't have that little gravel path, the water can flow back and forth underneath, especially now that we're going to be putting in boardwalk. So some years that might be dry underneath, other years you might have water under. So to remove a bit of the gravel, I might even, encourage some of the aquatic plants to grow under there. But that's basically, it seems like, and then you may, if you start removing it, find a few more creosote ties that can be pulled out as well. I don't know what that part is. I'm suspecting like underneath, that might be too deep to go, but I'm suspecting like the original, when they put the original trail in the 90s, that's what they were doing when they got to wet spots, is just throwing the creosote ties right across. So I would suspect there's creosote underneath there, but minimum, I'd like to see the creosote under the bridge taken away, because we know it's there, it's floating around and still there, so.
John?
I really don't want to slow this down, but I'm forced to ask this question. If we're saying, which I would agree with everything you say, and I would vote for it, but my problem is if we need to do it as the first step, then that delays everything a little bit.
Yeah.
And then is that included in the price tag that we're talking about? So then, I'm getting a nodding head over there that maybe answers my question, but so that stuff, I don't know what other people, but I kind of need answers to that stuff because it affects the way I think on it.
So in terms of the price, it's not included. That
Okay.
wasn't part of the original scope that the contractor tendered on. However, the previous motion that we made could provide funding for it. That's kind of a blanket statement that happened before. Anything that's outside that's unbudgeted would be paid for through grants, so this would fall under that. There'd have to be grant money available to pay for it. What's the other part of that question?
No.
What would it do to timelines?
Yeah.
Yeah, that, I'd look to administration. Ms. White, did you want to speak to that?
Yeah, just to perhaps make things a little bit easier, Beth, we might be able to do a motion where, you're asking for administration to consider creosote removal during the process and to bring that information to council. That's a way that we could do it, to assess that in as part of the timelines for this project. That's one way that it gets kind of where Jan's coming from, right? But also addresses making sure council knows about the creosote, making sure it's part of the plan, so forth and so on. That's just my recommendation if you wanted to edit that a little bit.
Yeah, well, okay, that's good, because I know this probably should have been done way in the beginning before tenders were put out and everything, like, but we're here now. So how would you suggest, like, just to modify the motion, just say to recommend that admin bring
forward an assessment of creosote removal. Hans, go ahead.
Yeah, I'm gonna speak to it when it comes, but or say something before that. Depends on what it is. Is that okay, Chair?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay.
Yeah.
Just to make 100% sure, this committee, we don't have to vote anything or say anything about removing the creosote pieces of the old bridge, because we are mandated to do it. It has to happen.
Yeah.
AEP gave us that direction already. Okay.
right, okay.
There is a rumor or ideas, or there might be creosote in the gravel path. The moment that the contractor puts a drill in to put a pile in, that's the moment that AEP wants to be informed. Did you hit any creosote? We don't know. If we hit, they will tell us what to do. Then we'll have to do that. If we want to remove gravel from the top layer, that's prerogative. If you guys want to say that, great. We can see how much that is. If we then at that moment scrape on creosote tiles, then holy, we have to probably tell AEP and say, should we remove this or not? Can you come over? That's basically the question here. Do you want to scrape a portion of the gravel off, yay or nay? If you hit creosote, we'll have to go to AEP and they will tell us, stop it or take it out. If the contractor hits creosote, AEP will also come and tell us and the contractor, stop it, do now this. So that's the question. Do you want to remove a portion of the gravel, yay or nay?
Thanks, Hans, that clarifies. Like, I was wondering too how AEP would know, but since you're right, it was mandated and that's all written in, so
Yeah.
that clarifies a whole lot. So I guess we just amended to say direct administration to look.
Also, in this case, like Hans is saying, it's already mandated by AP. So if you're wanting to dial the gravel back, that's the only question.
That's the only question.
To this
Just
group.
dial the gravel back. Yeah,
We got it.
yeah, that, thanks. Hans.
Okay, so your motion is to recommend that the gravel underneath the proposed ramp structure be removed?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
Okay, Ms. Haley Beckford.
Thank you. I just want to highlight also that it is stated in the tender that the contractor is aware that there might be hazardous material on the gravel path. And part of the reason too why we have that extra engineering monitoring is for that same reason. Because we don't want to have the contractor have a sub. We know how it goes. We award to one contractor and then he has his sub and things go haywire and then the town is in trouble. So we want to have that environmental person monitoring to make sure if you hit the creosote tiles, you're not just turning a blind eye. We are obligated to get that done.
Great, thank you. Tom, you had your hand up. Did you withdraw? Good, okay. Okay, not seeing anyone else that wants to speak to the proposed recommendation. Trevor, would you be able to read it back just so we can make sure it's changed a couple times? I just want to make sure Beth's happy with it.
So Beth recommends, or the BBOC recommends gravel under ramps be removed as part of the contract.
Good with that, Beth?
Sure.
Okay. Okay, anyone want to speak to it? Okay, seeing no one, all those in favor? Four opposed. Doug, how did you vote?
Oh, sorry, I was opposed.
Okay. Yeah, so I think we're still missing somebody. Sorry, this is the Tom. So sorry, Tom, how did you vote?
I voted for it.
Okay, so that was carried 5-2. So that forms part of the recommendations then. Thank you. Anything further, committee?
I would have liked to have heard why people are opposed, but that's just for future votes. I think it just helps people.
Yeah.
Yeah.
If there's creosote in the gravel, I don't want to be disturbing that at all. Just a gigantic cost overrun there.
Yeah, and my reasoning was that the gravel's been there forever. It's not hurting anything. I don't feel that it's going to hurt anything if it remains there. It's under the boardwalk structure, and it adds unforeseen cost. We don't know how it's going to get paid for. We have to make sure that grant funding comes in first, and in terms of timelines, that might be challenging. So
I think that's a really good knowledge and advice there. So yeah, it goes back to, I wish I heard that before.
that's okay. It's will of the committee though. And you're right. I probably should have spoke to it before I called the question. But been here quite a while. So.
I don't. Yep.
Yep. Okay, committee, any other proposed recommendations? I don't want to rush things. I know we've been here, but it's important and I want to make sure everybody's thoughts are captured. So if there's any other proposed recommendations, we've got time. Okay, seeing nothing else then, we will move on. Apologies, scroll back. Information items regarding duplicated boardwalk section administrative report. And just before I turn this over to admin, the reason we have to go through this today is this is also coming back to council as recommendations on February 22nd. So the committee is going to give feedback and any recommendations on it that have changed since it was talked about in December. We need to do it today. So.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So the process for us bringing reports to council means that we prep them about 2 weeks ahead of time. We review them internally in the administration, and then we bring them in the package that goes before the weekend. So basically on the Friday, in the package for the Tuesday after. The 22nd of February was the date that council wanted to hear about the duplicated sections in the boardwalk and trail sections area. They wanted to hear from admin and they wanted to hear with the input from this committee. So that's why 2 meetings ago, we put it out there. Last meeting, we talked about it and it was a short conversation at that moment. It was like, no, everything is important for this committee. So what about duplication? There are no duplications. We just want to maintain everything. So with that information, I drafted this report, which goes to the SLT group, so the senior leaderships in internal for us review. But I wanted to bring it one more time so that the committee sees, okay, this goes to council, this has our input in there, and it's okay. So basically, not a hammer, I don't need a vote for it, It's more like, does it work what we down here at the table said last time and didn't change? So on the 22nd, this is what comes to council. So if you see it in front of you, there is basically, I split it up a little bit in open sections, closed. You can say, well, something was closed and it stays closed, or something was closed, take it away. So I do a little bit of a categorization. So the categories, I go over it. But maybe more important is that it's worded again. The Beaver Boardwalk group down here said there are no duplications. We deem every section important. And that's in the end also the recommendation from administration to council. Take this report for information. It is what it is. There are no duplications. And the committee down here will go on with their work and come with recommendations over time or whenever council wants to hear from this committee. Then there was a map and comments. So to do it nicely with the sections in mind. So if you have that in front of you, that helps, of course. But if somebody can throw it on the screen, just the attachment, that will be awesome.
Just the attachment on?
Yeah, I chose to take the attachment, the images from the survey that happened 2 years ago when the Beaver Boardwalk Committee put their teeth into this. They did a survey to the community. Also, that survey come back basically with every section is important for the users that use it. There were two kind of connections that were a little bit deemed by maybe by the public in short amount, in small amount that might be taken away maybe over time or as a duplication. So that you see that now in front of you here on the screen. We did details on it to make more sure what it means, what could be, let's say, labeled as duplication. So the first little diagram under it talks about that, red and the blue arrow, basically duplication. Do you get to the same spot if you take two different routes? Well, section A is underwater, but don't take it away. It's no duplication, what this committee says. We'll see how we in the future might tackle it as a repair or whatever, but not deemed taking it out. Then you go down, basically it happens the same in detail too. There's an X in that section that the Boardwalk Committee said, like, yeah, that goes to the bottom of the tower. That's already for 5 years underwater. Nobody uses it because it cannot be used. So take that out, fine. But then again, even section B and C or A and B compared to each other, no duplications. Then you further go down, detail 3, same thing again, E and D. Looks like a duplication because the yellow line basically that walks under the green and under the blue, but basically is the connection between the bike park and let's say on the south side of Maxwell Lake and all the way down to the Beaver Lodge. That down trail, you could get there from number E and number D. So once again, no duplications, even every time. You see that here, no section deemed duplication. Administration does give, let's say, a note in there. For example, on this one, it's like, well, whenever there's a closure needed on those sections, A or D, it could be deemed at that moment not to rebuild it. But right now, the sections are okay. They are part of regular maintenance. We swing hammers to it. So they are open right now without extra dollars. So council, nothing to worry about right now. Detail 4, same thing. Detail 4 is along Happy Creek. H and I, number H had a closure before. Most people remember that, where that number 4 is closed. It's now both open. Once again, this group said no duplication. Administration could say, hey, it's no duplication. Also, don't confuse the yellow line over there because that's bike trail Happy Creek itself. So there's even 3 lines next to each other, but they have clearly different functions. And in this case, also H is repairable. It might be a little bit more cost when it starts to collapse like we had before, but still it was collapsed. We opened it up. we might have to do that a couple of times with some heavy, let's say, maintenance. And detail number 5, the whole loop that's closed on the west side that everybody knows. Once again, this committee said no duplication. Well, if we have the opportunity, open up everything again. And for us as administration, you could maybe in the future say, hey, it's not smart, of course, to have one section only, K or J. Why would you have that? And say that's duplication because now you're dead-ended at the end over there, mostly to the left. Yeah, the left. If you have that, yes, yes, that's right. Yeah. So if you would say one section is only going to be opened and you dead end at the end over there, you might go through the forest back to the yellow line, which is the town trail again. But that's a new application, a new question. So we also said as administration, just basically at the moment, listen to the recommendation from the committee down here. There are no duplications here. And they're closed right now, and they need a big decision by the committee down here, maybe in the future when there's dollars. And the last one is detail number 6. Once again, no duplication from this committee. The big one, of course, we talked about it earlier, is O, section O, which is closed towards the bridge. Big thing, of course, to invest over there, but it's no duplication with, for instance, the red line that says connection. And connection because that's basically the ongoing trail connectivity. So taking that blue line out under the connection over there would not be smart on administration's part either, because that's basically our trail connectivity instead of going to the road and find your way over the parking lot from Maxwell Lake Apartments. So with that said, this is the report that goes to council. Take it for information, and you did not get as council from this committee an answer on there's a duplicated section, rip it out, and you don't get that either from administration at this moment, rip it out. Any questions?
I have questions, Mr. Ron Bobber. I apologize if this was covered at the December meeting, but I wasn't able to be there. Know that the AEP approval for Boardwalk repair and replacement is quite an open, long, sorry, not open-ended, it's quite a long-term window, is it not?
Yes.
10 years? What it is?
I think it's a minimum 10. I'm thinking almost 12 years, but yeah, 10 years for sure. Yeah.
So, and Boardwalk repair and reconstruction are both included in those, the approved AEP maintenance activities as part of that approval, correct?
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah, as long as they are staying in line in the same alignment. Yeah.
If a section of Boardwalk is removed now, say in 2022, can it be replaced under that AEP approval in, say, 2026?
No.
So it's immediate removal replacement.
The idea is that when you remove your pile from the pile hole, that over time that hole will change, right? And so that impacts the wetland if we then go drilling again. But if we remove and replace right away, we haven't impacted the wetland in AEP's view.
Okay. Yeah. So if I can follow up, then I'm fine with this report going to council so council can accept it for information. But I think at some point down the road, this committee might have to review the duplicated sections and closed sections potentially and make a decision on that, because we've now seen 2 different sections of Boardwalk. One Boardwalk replacement section that was about $333,000, and now some Boardwalk bridge ramp constructions that's another $300,000. So we're like $630,000, and we've only done, I don't know how many meters that is. Somebody probably knows off the top of their head, but it's a fraction of the Boardwalk. So I think it's become apparent that replacing existing Boardwalk is really, really expensive. Is that something that this committee is going to recommend that the town take on as a long-term expensive capital project? Or are we gonna take a look at that and go, yeah, you know, in terms of how much this is going to cost the town to reconstruct, maybe that section isn't completely necessary to have. So like I said, I'm fine with it coming back for now, but I think at some point we're gonna have to take a look at it, because currently closed sections, they might stay closed for 10 years because the money's just not available to go ahead and replace them. And I don't know that there's an appetite from the committee or council or citizens to borrow money to replace the Beaver Boardwalk. And I don't know that there's enough grants even available out there to do it with. So just my thoughts. Thanks. Anyone else? Any comments, questions, anything you want to put out there?
I don't consider them duplicate loops. They are an entirely different ecosystem from, say, the gravel path or from the other ones. They show you something different, but yeah, they're expensive. And yes, we do have to prioritize. And I would really hate to see them go. And if there's any way to fix them, bring them up to code, then I would like to do that. But yeah, that's a lot of money.
Tom?
Looking back to the original BBO recommendation, I think the committee also looks at it as anything considered duplicate as being deletable. And I think there's some sensitivities to, I've had a few conversations with other Boardwalk users, and they're fairly unanimous in saying that they want to see the closed sections open. I've sort of also been walking some of the closed areas and trying to come up with distance and try to wrap my own head around the resource intensity of fixing some of these. And looking at 115 meters of boardwalk for the one section, I was surprised it was that far. And then I started looking at other ones and finding out that, you know, you're talking 100, 115 meters, or in the case of the downstream loop, it's a meandering peninsula, and the best I could come up with the tools I had at the time was just about 300 meters. So you start to understand why a $300,000 grant may not cover that amount of boardwalk. I think too that we may have to come up with a more robust motion regarding duplicates, and if it's the will of the committee, and I'm not sure that I have the tools to come up with it at this moment in time, but I think that's kind of where we're going. Thank you.
Yeah, I think one of the things that the committee has to remember too is part of the scope of the work that this committee has to do isn't just to advocate for, you know, the reconstruction and to see that it all continues to exist into the future. There's the fiscal responsibility component. Like, does this actually make sense for a town to support the boardwalk and the reconstruction of the boardwalk all the way back to its former state? Is that even feasible or reasonable? So, like I said, I'm happy to support this moving forward for information, but it's a conversation we might have to have in the future. Yeah.
I appreciate your point, and I get it, and I look forward to that discussion, because we have to remember that the boardwalk was let go and was not properly maintained. And now hopefully we're using better construction standards, no offense to Rocky, rest in peace. But hopefully we're going to get more years out of this stuff. And so then maybe we're going to have to get help from admin or someone to help us look at the budget long range. Like, you know, if we build this, how long do we think it's going to last, and how, you know, what does the money look like then? And we also have to, is there other ways of doing it, you know, like floating docks or whatever? Is there other ways of doing it that are cheaper? And then ultimately, us as a group may have to start saying, well, we're going to start helping to find money if it means that much to us.
Sorry.
Just a note, so one of the things we kind of had to kick off with the agenda for today, just on the purpose of time, is kind of going back to those previous plans, evaluating the sections, and I have jotted it down that That is part of the long range planning of the maintenance planning. So we can start that earlier, like we're gonna kind of start towards the fall in preparation for budget. But I think from the discussion I'm hearing tonight is that actually is, like Hans and I and Chad, we've been working on this for a long time. So we know all of the sections and we know all the problems. So I think we need to really take some time to kind of evaluate each one, discuss it. So I've jotted that down and we'll address that as soon as we can.
So, good to go.
Yeah, if there's no other further comments or any specific recommendations that we want to put forward, we can move on. Okay, seeing none, that was the only other item that we had to get through today. There is another agenda item though, 4.1, which is a discussion about the 2022 proposed grant funded projects. So if there's an appetite from anybody on the committee to take a look at that next meeting, because it's not critical that we get through today, I just need a motion to postpone that to the March meeting.
I motion to postpone 4.0 to our next meeting in March.
Okay, thank you, Jan. There's a motion to postpone 4.1 to the March meeting. Any comments or discussion on that before we call the question? Mr. Von Klauer?
Yeah, I think that was, thank you, in line with what we were thinking a little bit earlier already, and wasn't Beth starting with a kind of presentation or something at least to tell about the sections or the history.
Oh, yeah, I was trying to do the history in March, so that would fit in well with that and all the background. This is out of order a little bit, Robert, but did we put another agenda item in just have an update on this?
Oh,
Yes.
yes,
Yeah.
my apologies. Yes, we did. Okay, so we'll deal with this. Sorry, we'll deal with this and then we'll get to that one. Yeah. Okay, so anything further on postponing item 4.1? Okay, seeing nothing, all those in favor? Opposed? Okay, that's carried unanimously, so that will be moved to the March meeting. And then, yes, the item that we had. Right, my apologies, I didn't write it, I didn't even write it down. What was that?
I had it as well, just an update on the
Oh, the winter
project.
work, yes,
Yeah.
yes, sorry, administration.
Heather, were you pulling up this,
What do you need?
the one from that attachment?
The big map with
Yeah,
all the
big
colors?
map, yeah.
Super specific.
Big map with all the colors. So what most likely people have seen about, I would say, almost 3 weeks, over 2 weeks ago, signage went up when the contractor came to site to start the preparation of the work to be commenced. Preparation would be building up let's say the ice layer, making sure that the roads or the route to take was in order. When we did that, we did drill in multiple locations the water that we've seen getting out of the let's say the big pond. And if you see that, that's number 6 over there. Everybody has seen that's gone. The lake itself as well. Not only there, but section 2 of this work, that's basically the L section. So section L. Yeah. That section is in the lower pond next to the big dam. Over there, only not enough sufficient ice and no water to be pumped to build up ice thickness to get the equipment or even get the work done. We tested it in multiple sections as well, even in section number 4 above that pond. There is no water under the ice. That means that section L for sure cannot be done at this moment. That's a scope change or how we have to figure that out. Your guys are the first ones to hearing this because we are back and forth. What is our plan? Because if we have scope change at this moment or have to extend later, that has to be planned out, of course, because also this grant, which has at the moment an extension to June, because that's what we thought when we needed the extension in this year, is June, so that the grant funding body has to now give us more time to December / whenever the work can be done at the end of 2022. The section that can be done is, it doesn't have a number, but that's the green section towards the housing section over there. That's 20 meters because that is accessible from land. That's basically leapfrogging to take it out and leapfrogging backwards to put it in. That's not a problem. So that can be done. But now we are already talking about splitting up of work. So mobilization, demobilization, twice. The other problem is the Maxwell Lake area itself. So getting to section, and it's again B, section B on the other side of the lake, from the dock towards not where the letter B is, but close, halfway-ish. And the green section, that's part of the town trail, but that's Boardwalk built on top of it, or where back in the day it was trail. That section green and section B is accessible when you cross the lake. With not enough ice on the lake, the way to mobilize is from the picnic tables. So where the kids start their ice at the end where the outhouse is when you come from the church, which is the access road basically, or the access to get there. You have to go on the side of the lake, so on the edge of the lake, but cross the Beaver channel, so to speak. So where the beavers come under the bridge and go to the lake. That ice is not enough. Once again, there's no water under it. It was one borehole that had a little bit of clear water, the rest is just mud. Not enough water to pump to make an ice bridge over there. Meaning we have to go back to AEP with our consultants, making sure what's the option. Right now, that means most likely rig mats in to get on the other side. If you want to have rig mats over there, you have to put rig mats all the way for your machine, because that's even heavier machinery than you want to get to the other side. You have to make sure that you rig mat all the way leapfrogging towards to get there. Our consultants, AEP, basically also says you should now rig mat all the way to the other side. So get to the other side is my next headache. My window is closing because let's say 7 weeks till the end of March on this work, which means a back and forth with our contractor, splitting up the work, yes or no, part of the obligation with the contractor, yes or no. Let's say mobilization is not long, it's about 2 weeks to get here. But even then, let's say with something has to happen in 2 weeks, or let's say start decision decided in 2 weeks. Otherwise, I'm going to most likely being close to my window. Not if the end decision is only section 1, which is that little green blob, because that's easy peasy almost. If that's the only work right now, that would postpone everything to the end to December. With no security that we will have beavers, that water comes back, that let's say ice conditions make sure that machinery, whatever you need, can be moved freely. L section is a headache. Getting to the other side of the lake is a headache, even with no guarantee for next year. We know we have 1 beaver left, maybe 2, but they are trying to survive without water under the ice. That's the update. It's not more pretty than it is. That's my next headache.
Great, thank you, Mr. Van Paalen. Committee, any comments or questions regarding the work update?
And the fire department refused to come over with water.
That's what I was
Sorry.
gonna ask.
I
Oh, really?
yes. That's not an option.
Doug? Oh, you're muted, Doug.
The grant for the work you're under right now, how long does that one last for?
That grant was the MSP. It's basically a grant that was originally for 2021. So the extension to 2022 is to June. It's another grant that, of course, everybody is extending. right now, the extension request is even further out. So it's already extended. It's not approved yet to beyond 22 June. So we were expecting to finalize that. This is a grant that has two big projects. One is already done and over. And this was, let's say, 1/3 of that amount to do this project.
And if you went with rig mats to get your equipment access, does that exceed the grant amount?
Basically, the answer up to now is yes, but that's the battle. Because if it's yes, that means change of dollars, that means council approval. That's the first time that Councillor Ostashek heard about it. Just saying, but the cat is out of the bag. Wow.
Okay. Committee, any other comments or questions before we?
Not
move
easy.
ahead?
Good question. No, it's not. This is not. It's not fun in my book.
Okay, seeing none, then we'll move on from update on winter work. Next meeting date is scheduled for Wednesday, March 9th from 4 p.m. to 6 p.m. And I had one question for administration before I ask for an adjournment. We talked about the tender, we got a copy of it. Committee saw the numbers and everything. I know council hasn't seen those numbers yet, and they're likely not going to until the 22nd. I just have to ask administration, is that for the committee to hold in confidence? Are those numbers public? Are they publicly available?
I don't think we should, sorry, Heather, go ahead.
Oh, I wasn't going to, I was just leaning in to listen to you. You go ahead.
No, I think those numbers should not be made public until we take the report to council.
Yeah, that's what my thinking was too, but I wanted to confirm with administration. So yeah, committee, that's something you're going to need to hold in confidence. It was information we needed to make our decisions today, but we'll have to keep it in confidence until it's released publicly. Go to Ms. Daly Beckford and then Jan.
One other thing you need to keep in confidence is the name of the bidder and the amount the bid is. So you cannot disclose that.
Okay, thank you for that.
Just-
Yep.
I just
Sorry, I'll
need-
just go to Jan first and then
Since it's been emailed, can we have someone send out a message to everyone, the two people that are not here? And she's already done it, so
I was going to do it too. So thank you for that, Heather. Yep.
That's it.
That's it. Okay, Beth.
Oh, just to confirm, like, so the numbers can't be shared until it's publicly available, and when is that time? I missed that part. Because of
I'm assuming it'll be on the 22nd because that's when it's coming to council, but administration, is that correct?
It's going to council on the 22nd. However, the agenda will go live on the afternoon of the 18th. So for safety's sake, make it the 19th.
okay,
Yeah.
okay.
And maybe just check the agenda before you're talking about it in public to make sure you're not talking about stuff that's not part
Yeah,
of the agenda.
okay, good idea.
Okay, thank you for that clarification, administration. Appreciate it. Any other questions on that before we move on? Okay, seeing no one, I would look for a motion to adjourn.
I'll adjourn.
Beth?
Make a motion.
Okay, motion to adjourn. All those in favor? And that's passed unanimously. Surprise.
Thanks, people.
Thanks, everyone. That was a good one.
Thanks, everybody.
Night.
Have a good night, everyone.
Thanks, everyone.
He's not so young.
Appreciated your